get the meeting started. Sorry about that.
Oh, no.
With that, we'll call the meeting in order.
That's no more fun.
No, I didn't see my sign. Oh, there it is.
Roll call.
Lose. Sorry.
You need extra chair?
Sign. No. The name sign. I'm sorry, I saw Del Monte Beach and I didn't see mine. Sorry.
We could change it around, everybody.
All right. Go
Rotate name blankets.
Aguajito Oaks,
It's my property.
I'm here.
He's have it.
Alta Mesa,
Forest next to us.
Casanova Oak Knoll,
Builder.
Deer Flats, Del Monte Beach, Del Monte Grove Laguna Grande, Downtown, Fish Flats, Glenwood,
Here.
Monterey Vista,
Here.
New Monterey, Oak Grove, Old Town,
Here.
Skyline Forest,
Uh-oh.
Villa Del Monte.
Wow.
Here.
Yep.
With that, we'll go to public comments for anything not on the agenda tonight. Please come up. We'd appreciate you state your name. You don't have
Listen, Adam, I wanted to comment on, I know we're getting along nice tonight, so this.
Microphone.
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 Can't hear you.
to. Is your light on?
It was.
It's on.
That's not
It's your-
Yeah, now it's on. So, on NIP COK for Casanova Oak Knolls, the Fairgrounds Road and Airport Road lighting, after the last week's going through all those, and that was one of the ones included in that, there was something that was left bothering me. I've been involved in quite a few events at the fairgrounds, and the one thing to keep in mind on that is that those lights are going to be very helpful to the events at the fairgrounds. I'm going to give you just one example that I'm been intimately involved with over the years, and that's the Monterey Jazz Festival. We had a lot of trouble back before we rented light bars with generators and everything to make up for the lack of lighting there. A lot of security breaches, people getting injured and so forth at night. These are the nighttime events where we see this problem, obviously. And so I just wanted to emphasize the value of that. That almost turns it into a citywide sort of thing, takes it beyond the neighborhood, the value of that. So I'm really big on that particular item for the events value of it. Thanks.
Anybody else in the audience like to comment on public comments not on the agenda?
If I have a question?
Certainly. Step up. Not on the agenda tonight.
No.
Yeah, that's good.
I basically have a question,
Do you want to come here?
Use the mic. She's in a wheelchair. I know, we just asked you.
I basically just have a question to find out if a handicap, parking space can be put in on a neighborhood street. How does that, is that a neighborhood type thing, or is that a city? Sorry. I can't get. No, it's off.
Push
You're
button.
getting smarter on work one.
Anyway, that's my question. Do I have to go through the NIP, or do I go through the city to have a handicap parking space put on a street? It happens to be in front of the Josephine Kearns pool that I use, but there is 2 handicap spots, but it doesn't say van, and it doesn't have any crosshairs, and my van has a ramp that deploys to the side, so I'm thinking if there was a street with a curb that is designated handicap, that would help out, and that's what I'm asking. I don't know who to see or where to go.
For public comments, we won't have a dialogue, but we'll get back to you. We'll
Okay.
follow up,
All right.
and I'll follow up with you or the traffic engineer.
Thank
We'll
you.
follow up with you. Anybody else in the audience like to come up? Please.
Hi, it's Katrina Hensey, and I know this is just in response to what you said. I live literally next door to Josephine Kern's pool, and just as a heads up, parking's super, super tight in that neighborhood. Tensions are very high. Snowball's chance in hell, but there are the 2 handicap spots that are in the pool, attached to the pool, and if there's some way they could adapt that, just as feedback.
Need to talk to traffic.
Anybody else care to comment on public comment? All right, with that, I don't really have any informational reports. We'll go to part 1 of the staff, purpose of the meeting. So this is the first of 2 public hearings and meetings. This is like the first time a lot of my either applicants or anybody, I've seen the scopes we've come up with and the estimates we've come up with and the limits of work we'll show you tonight. This is really to give an awareness of what we've taken from the project descriptions and last couple of Parks and Rec meetings. We've come up with our best estimate of how things will look. I can already tell you right now, I have a few errors in the presentation. Things will change on some of the projects. And so tonight is the first look you see the project, first get a look at the project for us to have discussion, take comments back. And then the second meeting, May 2nd, is when we have the scopes a little more highly defined, exactly what we're working for, and take up the comments we get tonight. We'll be revising the scopes, working for the second public hearing, which will be May 2nd. Of course, everything's working to the voting night on May 15th. So in a quick nutshell, that's the purpose of this meeting, is really giving awareness to what we've taken from the project descriptions and how we've interpreted them and how we want to alter them to go to the next phase. Sharon.
I agree with absolutely everything you've said, but I think for the public, I would go a step further and say the committee up here is trying to figure out what is the project. The next meeting and the following one, so the middle of April and the 2nd of May, those are the meetings where we're really going to need to hear from the community to find out, do you like it or not? But tonight is not the advocacy night because we're trying to figure out what it is.
And I'd also like to clarify, last Thursday on the 28th, we did neighborhoods A through, we were supposed to go to M, but we had to continue Monte Vista to tonight. So we just did the first half of the city. And this night we'll be doing Monte Vista continued, Fish Flats, which got moved tonight. Those 2 are normally done in the first meeting. Then we'll have N through Villa Del Monte and then the citywides. So we have a pretty full night tonight because we rolled two additional neighborhoods to this night, plus the citywides. That's why we will be instituting the 3-minute rule for public comments or talks, because we will have discussion during the projects, and I will open up discussion to the public too as we go through these projects. So just remind everybody, the April 18th meeting is the van tour. So as we see these projects, please give us a list of which projects you want to see on the van tour. And we also need a list of who wants to be on the van tour so we can get the appropriate size van and make up our route for the April 18th meeting. Lee.
Will you be sending out an email so that we can sign up that way for the van tour?
Or just pass a piece of paper.
Or pass a paper around tonight?
Certainly.
Okay. Thanks.
Then we'll go to NIP spokesperson reports.
The only thing to potentially report on is we had a finance committee meeting yesterday. We're having as a follow-up to get answers to questions we raised on the 17th or 24th. 24th. So we'll be ready in time for voting night to let you know where we stand with all the money and the expenses and all the rest.
With that, we'll go, I do have one item of business. We'll go to item 4. The city had a NIP project that worked with the North Fremont project that they're currently under construction now. We ended up not using the NIP money for the North Fremont with the grant they have. We have the opportunity to work with TAMC to get the section of North Fremont that didn't get addressed with the grant now between Casanova and Canyon Del Rey. Work on that piece, connect the North Fremont bike and pedestrian improvements to the Four-Tag Trail. The Four-Tag Trail is that connects Marina to Del Rey Oaks and the Rec Trail, and TAMC received funding to work on it. the request is we can work with them and with the allocation, if we can rescope the existing project for North Fremont, 300,000 NIP, we'd like to rescope it so we can do the portions of the work that TAMSI, one, we can accelerate it, and two, we can do the work that usually is not covered by the type of grants they have. And it just a value to the city as well as the region. And Richard, you want to add anything to this?
As you all know, I've been trying to get this project for years done. It's that big hole between Casanova and Canyon Del Rey, and we dedicated 300,000, and the construction bid came in at over 2 million because environmental issues, the bikeway and walkway will be in the air over the hole. And I saw this as an opportunity that takes the bikeway from North Fremont, takes it down Canyon Del Rey, down the canyon where the golf range used to be. There's a nursery now behind Safeway. And then it goes all the way down and hooks into Jim Moore Bikeway, which is the first Measure X project. And that goes all the way to Reservation Road. So this is the whole picture on creating a bikeway that leads down to our rec trail in Pacific Grove, and we're interrelating all the different cities. This is a key project. Otherwise, the bike trail stops at Casanova. There's nowhere to go. So this provides the design money, which allows us to go to the Fortag grant to get the construction money. Is that correct?
Dennis?
Our former friend Rich Deal was on the news tonight showing pictures of this particular run on the project. So the funding basically provides the seed money to get it up to shovel ready to get going.
For the design, and so we have, because it's real hard when you get grants, once you get into environmental, biological, this money will cover those costs. Same as previously, the NIP money funded the land acquisition stuff that's really, you can't do with grant money. It did that, which got the $6 million grant for the 5 intersections we're doing now.
And it's enough money to finish that part of it so that we actually
As long as we work,
get to the goal line.
This is the design.
it'll be the design.
What NIP contributed before allowed us to get the $8.5 million grant for North Fremont Street. So it was because we had a shovel-ready project, we jumped right to the top of the list. We beat out dozens of cities because of that. This will tie the other bikeways together. It's absolutely critical, and that area just became a homeless encampment.
And just to clarify, the recommendation I is to recommend the council to rescope the existing NIP project that was allocated to North Fremont to work on this section of North Fremont. I just want to clarify that. And Sharon, you had a question, then Tom.
Tom, you want to go first?
This timing is good because the Measure X Oversight Committee meets this coming Tuesday at the Marina Library. So I can give a report, and it ties in because the Fortrag is part of the Measure X ballot measure. So timing is good on this.
Thank you. Sharon?
Okay, so we have 300,000 or what's left after?
No, exactly 300,000.
We have
did not
exactly
use
three-
that.
Okay. And I'm wanting to nail down exactly what we're going to get. So it's designed for bikeway. Now, so far with North Fremont, the bikeway is in the middle of the in middle of the road.
The
Is it
original plan is that section is a walkway, bikeway combination. There's not enough room to do two separate ones. So the middle of the bikeway that ends at Casanova, you have a push button. You can push the button and you get a clear green light, and you over and you can go down to Canyon Del Rey. Otherwise, you got to go along in front of Safeway and take your chances on there's so many car movements there. It's just
Okay, so you're going to come to Casanova and you'll push the button and you'll go north to cross the intersection. Then we're going to be looking at stripe to define a bicycle lane.
I don't know what the design is. That's what the money is for, to design it.
But the intention is to provide for bicycles on that north side.
And pedestrians.
And yes, and the walkway we've talked about before would be kind of a cantilevered walkway.
So
So it's,
they're trying to that got too expensive with the bid prices. So instead of having the bus jump lane, we'll move things in so we can just get a more conventional retaining wall and walkway. So the main thing is to get the walkway and maybe shared use, because we got too far out and the construction costs were too high.
And are we anticipating that all of this design will cost $300,000?
It's our portion of it. We'll be working with TAMC.
And we don't know that yet. But Andrea says it'll cover it. That's what I can go by.
Thank you.
Dennis?
I can tell you from having ridden down 218 for lots of miles, and back in 11, 12, when I rode 7,500 miles in this town, 218 is probably the most dangerous. It scared me more than going on 68, going out to Salinas. Because the thing that happens is the car goes where the eyes go. As soon as they look at the bicyclist, the car's in the bicycle lane. And I can tell you, if there's more than one bicyclist, the first one's going to get run over on 218. So I really like this getting them off 218 because we might paralyze or not paralyze people that way.
I'd like to open this up to the public. Is there any in the public like to come up and comment on this item, rescoping the existing NIP of North Fremont to be the section of North Fremont between Casanova and 218?
Mike Brassfield. I worked on this project with Richard in the past, and we were tossed out of the consideration on the current grant because of funding. And this particular $300,000 was the orphan. And I do suggest that we finish the bikeway to nowhere to get it, and as Dennis points out, off of 218 and go in both directions, because once you reach Canyon Del Rey, both are going to be open in both directions. And it would give lifetime to our current project, which we still have the other end to figure out, but we do need it, so thank you.
Anybody else like to make a comment?
So Velo Club Monterey has, this is Bruce Annette again. Velo Club Monterey has a number of rides that come down, or a couple of rides that come down through Del Rey Canyon. This sounds like something that would be an advantage, and they go through that dicey intersection. So this sounds like a positive.
Early?
My neighborhood, Del Monte Grove, Laguna Grande, is going to say thank you, thank you, thank you for passing this, because it was really looked on by some folks in the neighborhood as a diss. And there were people who were not pleased, and so I think this is really a good addition, and so I certainly hope it goes through. Thanks.
With that, I'll bring it back to the committee. Tom?
One quick question. We know that TAMC has its crack planners working on this 4-track thing. Who is involved from the city of Del Rey Oaks? Because this, goes smack dab. It's a zigzag past City Hall, up the gully, past the old golf course. I really wonder how they're going to get by Safeway, but I'm sure somebody smart enough, maybe another tunnel, who knows. But anyway, do we know who's representing Del Rey Oaks? We need to make sure our sister city.
Have to ask Richard. I'm just working with Andrea.
Andrea is the lead on our section. Right, but Fortag and TAMC they're responsible for everything from Safeway back. So we're only providing the seed money, which is the link in the chain to bring everything together.
Sharon?
There is a suggested change of title for this, and I would like that it show that it's the north side. It just could be in parentheses at the end of it, because as I read it initially, it wasn't clear to me, and I think we want to be as explanatory as possible as we rename this, as to exactly what it is we're trying to do. And we're not putting a sidewalk and bike route in front of the Safeway. I mean, we want to make it clear that it's on the other side.
So we'll make that in a motion. Are we done with discussion and go to motion, or? Rick?
I will make it as a motion, in large part because, in effect, the original project was bikeways down North Fremont and ADA access. What we're doing is basically we're still doing bikeways on North Fremont. So while it may technically be a change of scope, I don't remember what the exact wording was of the original. I don't really remember it being.
It had the 5 intersections in it. That's why we.
Yeah,
we felt
I know that.
because
It
of
was.
money, we needed to change.
Yeah, because I didn't remember it specifying 5 intersections. When we had all the discussions, we talked about bikeway. So I'll make the motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
With the specification that it is on the side, north side, I guess, of North Fremont? Yeah.
Yeah, that would be.
And that's part of the title.
Just go where the tents are.
And we had a second. Who was the second? Richard? All those in favor? Looks unanimous. All right, thank you. With that, we'll get on to item 5. This is the presentation of the projects, the first hearing of these projects here. In the first part, we'll have a continuation of Monte Vista neighborhood from last week. So Monte Vista 1 is a request.
Can we start with Fish Flats?
We can.
I mean, it's Fish Flats and then Monterey Vista, so we just go in order?
Fish Flats 1's the Fisherman's Flats Park improvements. Request is to replace a large tree cut down and install the doggy poop bag receptacles. And let's see, I didn't get my, movie. You have to bear with me 1 minute. Fish Flats 1, Fish Flats Park, request to replace a couple large trees between the place, adding a muck pit station, a garbage bin, as an entrance into the Fish Flats Park. FM1. Maybe get a little better on this. So, Tom, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, just for clarification, there was a beautiful, huge, when it says large tree, oak tree. That was, Louis remembers it. It was really sad to see that go. It's right near the barbecue area. So I talked to Hope, who put this project in. She's really hoping to come up with some decent size of the 2 trees, and where you locate them. So I guess we're saying, and then the other thing is on the doggy poop bag dispensers or whatever. I think they're dispensers. You pull them out of if I remember the ones that I've seen in Carmel. We're really talking about 2 of those, and then additional garbage cans, because right now there aren't any garbage cans. You saw the picture of the entrance on San Vito. You can see there's, on Trapani Circle was the picture he showed, and then the other entrance is on San Vito Circle. So that's where the receptacles or dispensers and, something to put the doo-doo in. So we're talking near 2 entrances, 2 dispensers and 2 cans. So, and I talked to Hope, and she concurs with that. She was the submitter of this project.
Have any other, Rick?
So I take it when we take a tree down on our property, we have to replace it 2 for 1, so the city doesn't have to live by the same rules? So, I'm wondering why NIP is having to pay for it. It should be.
Now, if you have a tree fall down on your property, you have to require replacement.
Well, this says taken down.
Or it's rotten.
Yeah, it died. Sad death.
Jamie,
I thought I heard at the last meeting something about a citywide parks program to put dog.
It's a citywide in 25 parks. That's coming up farther down.
Yeah.
No, it's a project proposed. We changed the citywide dog park to installing mutt mitts in 25 parks in the city.
So the correlated question, is this one of those?
It's one of the 25 parks, so this could be a duplicate.
Duplicate.
I don't know which one's going to get funded, but that one's just mutt mitts. It doesn't have the tree work and tree replacement.
Or the garbage cans.
Or the garbage cans. Sharon?
Okay. When we were going through the original weeding meeting, I thought we heard that it would be referred to parks to put in the additional garbage can, that we wouldn't be doing that since we...
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be part of this project anymore. And it's citywide 5, that is the 25 parks for the mutt mitts. And I too wonder, you don't have a budget to replace trees in parks?
Where are we paying for it?
I didn't ask for it, I don't know. We could probably do it.
Can we see for next meeting, see if that piece can be taken care of? So it would be less than $9,500 for a poop receptacle?
Yeah.
Let's hope so.
We normally replant, so I don't know if you want a real investment tree.
Come and look at ours.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're talking about a 25-gallon tree. I mean, lots of times what we do is we plant a tree that has a chance to develop in the place that it's positioned.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be a problem.
It varies, because some of my projects, they request through ARC 24-inch box tree. They want the larger trees because we take things down. It just varies. We're going through the process. This one, I don't have a requirement. To say a lot of times we'll put a 24, even a 36-inch box tree, and that's where we start getting into the expense. Tom?
The submitter did not, she trusts the city to pick out what size. The oak tree that was lost had to be a historic age.
Yeah.
It was an oldie.
Oaks are going to be notoriously small when we plant them, because even if you get them in 48s, they're going to be pretty small, and they take a while to get growing, so.
The submitter understands that.
Okay. All right. With that, I'll open up to the public for Fish Flats 1. Is there any comments? Seeing none? All right, thank you. Fish Flats 3 is Marcellus Circle infill. We've looking at this. The request was just to do some sidewalk work filling here. I haven't met back with Tom or the submitter. Our requirement's going to be we need to get them out to the sidewalk on Via Isola. If you come along here, there's sections of sidewalk missing and big hedges. Come along here, there's actually a brick walkway. Then we get in some little walls, and there's a section, and we have all the driveways to get people out. So let me get to my movie.
You can see on the upper left-hand corner is where the infill is.
This isn't working.
It's in front of one house and between 2 driveways.
This is Fish Flats 3, right?
I mentioned one of the things that came up before. The policy advocated, oops.
Infill, the issue we have is once you do a sidewalk on a 2% slope, getting into these driveways are about 8% slope, so you have to redo all the driveway process. The other issue we have is it's a request only to do the infill in front of a couple homes and not the rest of them, which they have to go. And if I'm going to put a sidewalk here, our standard practice is to have it go somewhere. This is the end of the full corner of Marcellus Circle. One option would be to tie it into the sidewalk that's down over there. I have the same issue with driveways, and then huge big hedges down on this side. If I come up, sorry, go fast. If I go up the hill, actually I have a brick sidewalk, not bad. And I have sort of brick wall we have to remove a little infill up in there. And there's multiple driveways on there to get up to the main road.
That's not the requested area.
Right. I was just saying, for the implementation for us to work, let's see, get back to my, I don't want to keep turning it off. For me to do the work back in here, I need to tie it out to the walkway in Via Isola, so we need to decide if if you guys want to pull this project or not, because it's a lot more ramification, a lot more being disrupted to do the sidewalk infill back here in this little piece.
This policy that's put out by the city attorney is actually a deterrent to get people to put infill. And also the requirement, I can tell you, the swim coach, former swim coach at MPC, because of the requirement that the owner has to take over future maintenance, is a turnoff. I couldn't convince her to do the 17 feet in front of her house because of this policy. And, you know, even though a 30-year, 40-year sidewalk, it's never going to fall apart in her lifetime. But the policy that the city adopted, if we'd have had that policy when the NIP first started, we would not have near the number of sidewalks and walkways we currently have in Monterey. Something needs to be done. I'm mentioning this. Something needs to be done about this policy. And if we can't get concurrence from this committee, I will personally take it up to the city council, because we are turning off people doing infill and proving. You saw the section in front of the lady's house where she's concerned about her small children. That's why she asked for the project to be put in. And to say, well, you got to do it all the way down to Via Sola or you're not going to have it, that's nuts.
Quick
in my
clarification.
humble opinion. Okay.
The sidewalk code's been here since '84, since I've been here. The same code for maintenance responsibility. That's never changed. And then it's not the city attorney, it's our ADA transition that wants the pathway through. Or it's our ADA coordinator, which is the building official.
Who is that person?
John Keel, the building official.
Okay.
He's in charge of the ADA. Sharon?
One, I'd like to have it on the van tour. And two, for the van tour, I'd like to know what is the minimum amount of work that would have to be done to meet the ADA requirement. And I would say it goes beyond John Keel, because ADA prescribes. There's a federal standard, and if the city doesn't comply, the city can be sued. So it goes beyond John Keel. He's just doing his job.
Yeah. I'm saying there's a gap in our current city policy that needs to be looked at. And this is a really sort of a classic example of the current city policy not being workable. Because this is an easily fixed problem in front of that lady's house. Thank you.
Sure. Any other comments? Anybody in the public want to comment on Fish Flats 3? Okay, seeing none. Fish Flats 4, this is our annual Greenbelt fuel reduction. Fish Flats has like 3 really distinct areas for Greenbelt fuel reduction. Tom, any comment?
This was put in by the city forester, and we don't have any reason to argue except to support him. And then, again, last year's project to get the goats, Deer Flats has delayed until next year, the goats. So I've already talked to Jeff. The funds for that would be carried over to split, share the expense for the inaccessible areas from last year's goat project.
I tried this year. I couldn't get them under contract to do it. They did come this year, but by the time I heard they were in town, I worked with them before they got here, but I couldn't get under contract for them to do your portion. So we'll try next year.
I was on vacation this week on the East Coast, and I read an article in USA Today about goats being used to clear green belts, and they specifically mentioned the guy from Coalinga, who I think is maybe the guy we hire. So this is attracting national attention because of the fire prevention aspect.
So I'm not prepared tonight to give you the balance on these green belts, but we'll have it for the May 2nd, what we spent. We just didn't get that put together for tonight's meeting. Anybody in the audience have a question or comment on Fish Flats? Oh, Dwayne, excuse me.
Yes, I'd like the committee to consider that we take all of the green belts, lump them together, and consider funding them as one shot. Last year, I don't have a lot of experience here, the first round of voting, we funded everything. And that was almost the whole first round. There might have been 1 or 2 extra projects. So I'm making a motion for the committee to consider changing how we're doing this. Instead of one at a time, just let's do all the green belts as one consolidated funded item.
Richard?
Yeah, we've never done that 35 years. But I want to see what the balances are. We've been passing
I understand.
dozens of projects.
Sure.
I don't even know where we're at, what's been done, what hasn't been done. And some neighborhoods are a higher priority because they've never been done. Like Fish Flats, I think last year was their first one. So,
No, last year we had 2 new ones at Johnson Canyon.
That's the one,
And
yeah.
Monterey Circle, and we had that park above Old Town with the 2 new ones. All the rest have been around quite a few years. And just to clarify, your opening round of the 10 projects, 7 of them were the Greenbelt fuel reduction, and the other ones were done in the second round. So it almost took a whole round of voting to vote individual. I think what Dwayne was talking about, you still would have the same allocated amount broken down to each Greenbelt fuel reduction, and we just track the costs that way because they all are work orders to specific Greenbelts. But we do need to come back to you. It's an idea.
I just made the motion last meeting. I wanted to see the balances, and I don't want to short that out.
Okay. Jamie, then Dennis.
Yeah, as somebody who's seen these come up since we kind of invented it a few years back, and it's an ever-growing and more popular item across the neighborhoods, I think it's time for us to look at a coordinated approach to the fire suppression throughout the city and have a good plan and prioritize. And the neighborhood's kind of invented this, let's spend some money and help out. Now that we've got it rolling, I think we should make it into a real analysis, and that would help us all figure out how best to fund it, because we are not going to be able to afford to do what we did last year every year. And if you put it all together in one big thing every year, that's going to be a very large piece of our total budget.
It's about 310,000.
So I think a plan to prioritize would be good.
Dennis.
Whatever we haven't spent, we should spend, and the 2 previous foresters were extremely conservative about not cutting trees that needed to be cut. So I'm expecting that we will use every dime that they can get, and even at that, we may not make the forest safe. We killed somebody in Skyline Forest. We had several houses hit within Skyline Forest and Carmel and the other areas where trees are. We need to realize that we have a growing liability. 40 years ago when I moved here, I had a view of the bay. Today, I have 100-foot trees that block every bit of that view of the bay. To say that the hill-lined, or the tree-lined hillside, which is in the city charter, is something that we're trying to do is like saying we're going to go fight a war with 90-year-old soldiers and have it be successful. We need to give this forest some life, and that is going to mean we will be doing some cutting and planting.
Sharon?
Yes, I am agreeing with Dwayne. I don't see that, I mean, in all the years, and we've been doing some kind of greenbelt maintenance every year for 5, 10 years, a long time. And I don't recall a single year when we have left a greenbelt maintenance project on the wall. We have funded them every single year. If my math is correct and my memory, I believe we put $380,000 toward it last year. So if we're at 310, we're less than last year. I would like to at least have you tell us at one of our future meetings before we vote what the package would look like. And then we can decide whether, I mean, each of the neighborhoods that's involved could decide whether they want to leave it in the package or have them stand individually. I know that since we have, as a committee, been funding every one of them, I can't imagine that this year, with all of the rain that we've had, that we're going to change our attitude toward greenbelt maintenance. And we're going to be using that money anyway. If we put it in one package, that's one vote. We take care of it, and then we get on with the rest of the neighborhood projects.
Rick's next.
Rick?
Yeah, a couple of things. I don't necessarily have an issue with the concept. I think the time to do it would be voting night when we're also potentially rescoping and doing things. However, what I need to see before I'm prepared to go that route is how is it going to work in practice? Because once it's easy to keep track of what's happening to our greenbelt when it's our project, when it's part of a bigger pot, how that's going to actually work and be kept straight and make sure that we're getting ours worked on and not just they're going to finish off these this year and these the next year is something that I would need to know. So if you could say how you would do that.
Put them all in separate pots.
Well, but we're funding one project.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause
So
it
I
would
don't
make
know
it
that
hard
we've
for
ever
me
had a
to-
project which had sub-budgets that were specific to certain things.
Let me ask finance. 'cause
So,
we
I
have-
mean, that's my only concern.
I'll come back, I'll ask finance, because we have individual accounts. If it is one action, but distributes it out through the individual accounts, so it keeps separate, I'll come back with you if that.
Yeah, but usually the individual accounts are tied to a project, which is how, I don't know when we've had specific dedicated funds within a project to 7 different things. I just don't want all of a sudden, work's not happening because all the money went over here.
And Jamie first?
That's all.
Well, and that's exactly my point. I'm saying, I think, I don't have a dog in this race. And, because we're not allowed to have trees. And so what I'm thinking, though, is if I want an effective use of my money in my city, I think an expert should be prioritizing instead of individual neighbors. Therefore, one pot and priority and plan. And that's why I'm asking the group whether they're willing to do that.
Okay, then Sharon.
One, we have to get a forester. We don't have one now. And as far as I can see, my neighborhood has indeed joined together and taken three different project numbers and funded them in one. I think it's a really good idea that you see. But let's make certain that we can get those individual numbers so that can be tracked, but at the same time, see if we can't vote the type together.
Oh, let's see, Dennis first, and April, and Hans.
The amounts that we have before us in this year's submittal came from the previous forester. So there is some forestry guidance that we have.
April?
I know our neighborhood is particularly concerned because we didn't get as much, at least from our observation, done on Madison Canyon as we thought was going to be done. I agree with Rick in that aspect, is that I hate to have it thrown into the pot and then, oops, all of a sudden one neighborhood gets messed up and there goes a fire, so.
Hans?
So I think with the budgeting for this, it does work, because I combined, about 4 or 5 years ago, combined 3 drainage projects in one, and there were 3 separate budgets that went forward and got completely figured out separately. So they are, I think that there has been a history of doing that, so that should be doable.
Okay. With that, I'll bring this out to the public. Anybody have a comment on, well, it's Fisherman's Flats Greenbelt fuel reduction, and it kind of grew a little bit.
Like Grassfield. After Tom's presentation, I was going to come up and say the same thing that Dwayne said. Every year, we go through this, and now the numbers of projects are climbing over 100. So some consolidation of some of these issues is relevant. And then I've listened to some presentation by state fire officials. The 100 feet safe distance from houses is now being proposed to make it 300. The amount of attention the state is now paying on these fringe areas is escalating. So you guys are, if you make these kind of changes, are ahead of the curve, because they're just starting to do this in some places. So please, take his consideration under serious consideration and make it move forward. I think it would, oh, by the way, on Rick's point, I trust this group is not going to let money get away. So that isn't going to happen, so thank you.
Rick?
Yeah, unlike Del Monte Beach, I have 3 oars in this fire because I have 3 green belts around me. I said, for us, the standpoint is, if you're looking to some outside person to set priorities, they're going to have different ones based off of what the neighborhoods tend to be more time in those green belts, and many times know better of the condition a lot of times than somebody. And what is priorities today could change tomorrow based off of, and next year based off of what's grown. So it'd be very hard to have a plan that's going to be a multi-year plan. All of them have different reasons behind them, have different aspects. Last year we funded a couple that had never had work done in them. So it's a living, breathing thing. I said, I don't have a problem with it as one, as long as we have a concrete way of ensuring that how much each neighborhood has Greenbelts is going to get work done, and we can go in and see what was spent, and yeah, it's tracked.
we can do that. Feasible, just have a tracking. Okay. No one, anybody in the public, no comments? Okay. Now we'll go back to New Monterey. Oh, Fish Flats.
Monterey Vista.
Yeah, Monterey Vista. There's no motion, I'm just bringing information back.
And actually, it wouldn't be in order at this point anyway, because this isn't done for taking action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm taking feedback, comment. When I come back for the second public hearing, we'll see how the dynamics can change in scopes.
If we need to, I'll withdraw my motion.
Thank you, Dwayne. So tonight, MV1, moving to Monte Vista. The request is to put a speed radar sign at 495 Monte Vista. So it's right on the curve here. It's right below Via Gayuba, above Toyon. And the applicant has a driveway here, the wall there. We're proposing, we haven't talked to the applicant, put it down in here. So it will require a little bit of vegetation removal. Let me get to my movie, which I don't know why I can't just get the thing.
This is a great idea. That's a speed run.
MV1. This is MV1. Request is to put a radar speed sign along Monte Vista. And the frontage is 495 Monte Vista. Obviously, we have the driveway and stuff up here. So basically, we're proposing to probably put it down in this area down here. Need to get away from the driveway. We'll have to watch for sight lines going this way and going up. So we'd have to work with the applicant where we want to place a sign. Fortunately, we have the wide area for parking, so we can get it fairly close to the curb, but we'll have to watch out for them to pull out and make sure we don't obscure their sight lines, people coming up. Hans, do you have any addition to this?
The only thing I have to say is we've been trying for a long time to get a speed sign on this road. It's been real tough because most people don't want it in front of their house, and we're very happy to have finally found somebody who's willing to put it in front of their house. So this is a great opportunity to get a speed sign on that road.
Dennis?
Every once in a while, you'll see a stopped Tesla with flashing lights letting a neighbor out in that block, and that might be me.
So anybody in the public want to comment on MV1? Hans, you want to bring up Bruce and we'll go over the three?
Well, if you want to do all, we'll bring Bruce up at the end, we'll skip.
Okay, I'll go to MV3.
I don't know, we discussed MV2 last time.
Yeah.
Do we still want to discuss that again tonight? We can.
I can, but I have to have Bruce up there. You have to leave the room.
We discussed that, but we've already done this.
MV2's done? Okay.
So, yeah, so,
Go to MV3 then.
yeah, MV2, MV9, and MV12, I can't be here, so let's do those at the end and then.
Okay. The MV3, this is 751 Dry Creek Road. Request is to add a storm grate. What we noticed, they looked across the street, see how well that worked. There's actually two inlets over there. The issue is the water comes down the block. These inlets don't have hoods on them. And then there's a driveway, it's because the driveway breaks down from the roadway. Any plug-in, it can go that opportune way. Let's get my movie. This is MV3. Request is to reconstruct that catch basin down there with the, on the other side of the driveway, with the notice across the street. We actually have two inlets to handle the flow on this side of the street. On this one here, we recommended we not only replace that. So the biggest issue is we have a unhooded inlet. A lot of times the grates that will collect the needles. With the hood, everything overflows, goes in the hood. The way this neighborhood's laid out, we don't have hoods. So recommended we'll reconstruct this. This one I can get a hood in. We can put another inlet here, because really, if the street does flood over, the low point comes down the driveway there. Hans, going to add to that?
Sure, this is a low part in that street, so it tends to, when that blocks, it floods and floods down the person's driveway. But there's a good side drain down the property line from that grate. So if we get a nice grate that doesn't clog, and I think the suggestion was to put one on the uphill side of the driveway too, to catch a lot of the a little bit more of the water, that this will really solve a lot of problems on that street of flooding.
This is one of our high neighborhoods with a lot of pine needles, this upper portion on that. All right. Anybody in the audience want to discuss MV3? All right, thank you. MV4, 53 El Camino del Norte. Request is to add a street light and the existing wood pole. It's about mid-block on El Camino del Norte. This is MV4. The request is to install a street light on the power pole in front of 53 El Camino del Norte, which would put a street light about mid-block on this section. MV. Yeah, I forgot that. So basically, we're city still, we'd like by the end of the year come up with a standard operating procedure for streetlights. The past 33 years I've been here, it's been one at the intersection and one mid-block. We do have multiple areas where they have more than one. It's just how they've got there. We don't have a standard operating practice for installing streetlights in neighborhoods. We'd like to hopefully get that done here before the fall. Hans, you want to add to this?
So this is a very windy section of the road and is also the final pole on this leg of wiring. So the pole before that is definitely around the curve, so it's quite dark. This area is not helped at all by the previous light. There's a lot of elderly neighbors up in that area. And there's also a very steep drop-off. It's on the hill, and where you can see the ocean view, there's a steep drop-off, and if cars park there, can't see the edge of the pavement, they fall down quite a bit. It's a difficult place to park as well as walk, because people have, older people up there have a hard time seeing. So we have, I think, 13 signatures from all the neighbors around there really wanting that street light. And yes, it is only one from the previous light. And in the other direction, there's another wire coming up that stops further down Del Norte, but that's also quite a distance away. So these neighbors would really like that street light.
Richard.
Yeah, I'm not hearing clear direction here. The ones on Fairgrounds Road, we have to go through to get a city lighting policy, but you say that's not going to be ready till the fall. And out of these two projects, how are they fairly treated? That's what
I'll treat them all the same. If we get funded, I'd like to have the city's policy resolved before I fund and implement the construction of these. Yeah, once we get funded, have the policy in place. Anybody in the audience want to talk about MV4?
Hello, Jeff.
Hey, Gasper.
Hi, my name is Gasper Cardinelli. I live at 44 El Caminito del Norte, and what that gentleman said, I say ditto. I confirm 100%. It is very difficult, especially when you come around the turn late at night. It's pretty dark, and I would appreciate a light there. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Any other comments? All right, with that, we'll go to MV.
May we have this on the van tour?
And yes, Jamie.
Two questions. We've done a number of streetlights in the past, so I'm questioning whether we need to change that before we have direction about changing it. But the other one is I don't see 153 on the list of signatures. Does that need to be a specific approval before this can go forward?
You know,
I don't see the property 53 having signed off and approved the location.
Property 53?
All the neighbors right around there.
Yeah, I know all the neighbors around there, but I don't see that address.
He's a submitter.
Oh.
He's a submitter.
All right. Well, he needs to sign his petition then.
Thank you for reading up on that. MV5, this is El Dorado sidewalk resurfacing. The request is to infill in the DG with concrete. Let's see. MV9. MV5, I'm standing on El Dorado at the Monroe intersection. The request is to fill in hardscape the sidewalk along this frontage. El Dorado, the rest of the block has concrete sidewalk. To do this, we'd have to reconstruct the driveway crossing to make it compliant walkway.
Jeff?
Yes, Sharon.
This is right next to a commercial property, and state law says that a commercial property owner is responsible for putting their own sidewalk in.
Okay.
100%.
If the city wants to notice them and have them do it.
But we've been told historically throughout the years that we put concrete sidewalk in front of R1 and blank, vacant parcels. And if it was apartment, they had to pay half. And if it was commercial property, that was being used for a commercial purpose, they had to pay 100%. So even if we said yes, we're not going to be allowed to spend our money there.
Okay. Hans?
I addressed that with the owner, and he says, yes, as far as he understands, it's maintaining a sidewalk that was built. He's happy to mow the lawn as it is, but he says his view is that if the city bills it as concrete, then he'll maintain it as concrete. But right now, the city has DG there, or grass there, and he'll maintain that grass. Or whatever, mow it as it needs. So I don't know how exactly that works, but the person who requested it wanted, the person who requested it was somebody else who wants that side. I mean, it's the only sidewalk that needs it. I don't know, legally that, I don't know exactly what the legality is.
Correct.
Jeff, I suggest you bring this up to the city attorney, because I agree with Sharon. We had multiple times where there were proposals for sidewalks and infill of sidewalks in Cannery Row area and things in front of commercial, and they were not allowed to be projects. So we just need to make sure we know prior to voting night whether or not this is one that can actually be done by the NIP. I agree, it needs to be done. There needs to be a sidewalk there, but I don't know if NIP can do it.
Okay.
And the city can actually mandate that the property owner put it in, but you're right. Go ahead, the city attorney, they're the official, but we've been shut down. Wave Street, we put sidewalk in several different blocks, and we could do it in front of single-family homes, even though it was commercially zoned. We could put it in front of single-family, we could put it in front of vacant. But for commercial enterprises, and of course, the commercial property owners voted no.
Tom?
I'd just say ditto. I ran in the same thing years ago in the East Downtown area where there were some really bad sidewalks, and they had to get the commercial property owner to fix them.
Okay. Anybody in the audience want to talk about MV5?
So when you look at that intersection, all the corners, and there's quite a few of them there because there's several streets all merging there, they're all finished except for that one little ghetto spot. And we figured there was a history there that was the reason for that. So hopefully someday it gets taken care of because it's the one bad spot in that area.
Anybody else want to comment on MV5? All right, thank you. This is MV9, Via Del Pinar Realignment at Via Del Rey. So we have, oh, you're right. Let me go to, yeah, hold on. I got them out of sequence. Sorry about that. MV7, this is Mara Vista Traffic Common Phase 1. We're currently in designing the whole section of Mara Vista. This is a request to do construction implementation. So we've itemized out two of the major intersections of this section of Mara Vista from Dry Creek down to the Soledad Place. So we have Tota Vista intersection, which is a lot of major work. This is the intersection where it drives in to go to Colton School. People coming down there, so we'd basically be narrowing the roadway down, redoing the curb returns and the on-street parking. We have a little drainage work we have to do. We also have another block down here where Toyon comes in, below Via Gayuba, right above Mara Vista, where we can do some bulb out, some improvements with the, this has drainage issues too. It narrows the roadway down. This kind of comes out and helps with the striping we've done along the edge of this road. And this would implement the first phase of construction coming out on that project. Let me get to my... So this one will be Tota Vista. This is MV7, Mara Vista, and Tota Vista. Mara Vista is currently in design, going through two public meetings of improvements. The recommendation here is to narrow this roadway down as described with yellow white stripes. To narrow the roadway down, decrease the pedestrian crossing in Tota Vista, the roadway here, and have the parking more protected. Basically, it'd be the phase one construction of Mara Vista. Let's see. And this one will be Toyon. This is MV7 Mara Vista at Toyon. This will be another phase of construction of the intersection, basically choking down the narrowing into Mara Vista on both sides, and on one side of Toyon, narrowing down the intersection. Move it to kind of constrictions, so not so wide. This would be a smaller cost than up at Tota Vista. MV7.
You arrange those cars to be speeding by.
Yeah. No, this is our local drag strip. We, if you remember, we designed this we funded a full design a couple years ago, initially hoping to get some money from Safe Routes to School, but that, I guess, is looking less and less likely. And so we're looking here now at phase one. So this would be phase one, really only the part not at Toyon but at Tota Vista. And doing that, you also may remember a couple years ago we did Via Ladera on the left side of that upper plot. We brought in those two corners and built a crosswalk across there, a narrow crosswalk. So this is really continuing, and it's probably there's this intersection eventually also at Via Gayuba, but this would be I called it phase one. So hopefully we'll be able to. I know it's expensive, but I hope we'll be able to fund that at 370.
Question.
Yes.
I'm confused now. I thought we were talking about two intersections. Are we still talking two intersections?
No, as far as I know,
just the Tota Vista?
This is only one intersection,
Well,
is that?
the estimate for the 370 does Tota Vista. The other estimate's $132,000 if you wanted to do Toyon. So the recommendation we put right now, we have the one at 370, which is Tota Vista, which is the entrance into Colton School. And all the buses and trips go up through there. And it's right down from that, coming off of Dry Creek, coming down from Skyline Forest.
Right.
The upper portion.
So this is the one
Just the one,
intersection?
yes. I just threw the cost in and threw Toyon in my exhibit just to bring the discussion up.
And the stick in the spokes is that because it's traffic calming, it's going to have to be 100% of the people who are affected. So every household that's losing their parking is going to have to say yes to this.
We understand, yeah.
So I'm going to need to know
We have one more
that.
neighborhood meeting, right? To go
We have
for this?
two more, I think.
Pardon me?
Yeah, we have at least, one more. We have one more neighborhood meeting to resolve this, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm going to need to know that. I've got one in my neighborhood, and it's a high bar.
Yeah. Jeff, my experience is that when somebody says yes, they may not have asked the wife. When we did it, we actually had the drawing and we had them sign it. And believe me, it eliminated a lot of stress. Yeah, because they do change their mind.
Okay, no, got it.
If they sign it, then it's.
We'll make an exhibit, okay. Anybody in the audience want to talk about MV7? All right.
years later, when it actually goes to construction, they'll swear they never approved it, and it's only that piece of paper.
Okay.
MV8, Mar Vista Soledad. This is another study that NIP had funded years ago. We've gone through the study. It's a significant section. It's over 1,000 feet of roadway with curb gutter and sidewalk. That's why you see the fairly large cost. MV8.
Well, this is a tougher one there, yeah. I mean, it's neat.
This is MV8. Trying to get a walkway on Soledad Drive, the 200 block between Soledad Place and Mar Vista. As you can see, the LDE sidewalk, people parked on it, obstruct the sidewalk. It's a fairly long section of roadway, block, about 1,000 feet, MV8. Like I said, my movie doesn't do it justice. I looked at one section for about 150 feet, but it's a little over 1,000 feet, that whole block, right around the school from Monte Vista School. Hans?
And Bruce, sorry, and it left 6 spaces. We were talking about how many little bulb outs is left for parking spaces, because I thought you had said
No,
when
we
we
did
were
leave
there,
some.
6.
We did got some parking spaces. I can't remember them offhand, but I'll let you know that for sure.
Okay, that was a part. But yeah, this has a long history going back, gosh, quite a few years putting in a sidewalk there, and it's tough because a number of the renters there aren't fully in support of it because they lose parking where they are. There have been no parking there for a while, then neighbors complained, the city took out the no parking on that side of the street signs again, and so there's been a little bit of back and forth. So this is it's a tough project, but it's, boy, a lot of people walk there, and it is needed, so I don't want to see it become a big legal hassle yet. It's definitely, it's a worthwhile project, although it's going to see a little bit of resistance.
Jamie?
Is there any road work scheduled to go on in this area that we might leverage?
Typically, this is going to be curb gutter and sidewalk. Our major road reconstructions are staying within the gutter lips. And that's what we're getting the most cost for the asphalt. I don't have a big conform on this because we're just following the roadway. I mean, the trick of this is to try to keep as much on-street parking as we can without going over a cliff or building retaining walls. That's why it's kind of spotty. So this one I'd probably just do as a standalone unless I had other work going, because the traffic control beats up the cost in this because it's the bus route to both schools, Monte Vista and Colton. So we'd have to limit the hours. Whenever we work on this section of Soledad, we have to limit the hours the contractor can work for ingress and egress to the 2 schools. Richard?
Yes, and this is, I want to find out which project has the most consensus, because when you look at we're grouping here, the 2 together, that's almost half our working budget right there. So we need to focus, and we need to focus on the least legal problems and the most consensus.
Fine, yep.
Any other questions?
So narrow.
Anybody in the audience want to talk about MV8? All right. MV11, the Monte Vista Greenbelt fuel reduction. As you can see from the map, there's multiple areas. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 6 different areas in Monte Vista where we do the Greenbelt fuel reduction. Forestry has spent $50,000 to date. Hans, you want to add to this?
Well, it's like all the other forest reductions. Fuel reduction is necessary. So yes, they did some things for us last year. They, like usual, but I think last year they didn't get the state crew. They didn't get the prisoners. They got more regular tree people in there. But they do the Greenbelt and parcel B, the infamous parcel B. They mow down and so forth.
So I did have a cost. We'd spent $50,000 this fiscal year on your Greenbelt fuel reduction in Monte Vista.
Jeff?
Yes.
I'm trying to picture where this is. I mean, we've got 3 long strips and then a skinny little blue line.
Let me explain. So this one down here is at Pacific Street between San Bernabe and Via Esperanza, right across from here where our new sidewalk's being constructed right now. This section follows, what's the street? Via Del, Rich Steele lives on this one.
Ventura.
Via Ventura, follows that canyon up in there. And this section follows, this is below, this is like Shady Lane. It goes up through. This is the big section down there. This is where we have the log drops coming down through this area in there. This is the other area above it. It goes up Shady Lane up to the Skyline Forest area. This is Windermere, actually Windermere Gulch, goes down through. Then they have this little section of, I think it's Fernwood. It goes back in. This is Dry Creek. This is the area, this low point up here is where the application for the driveway with the drains is, because it all drains down into this Greenbelt area. Goes between Dry Creek, and then this is Toyon, goes up through there. Toyon comes up and tries the Dry Creek. So we have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different areas of Greenbelt fuel reduction in Monte Vista.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments on MV11 in the public? I'll bring it back. You don't need to see a movie of Greenbelts, do you? I just show you bushes.
But I gotta leave for the next meeting.
Yes, sir.
Ever get invited back in after this project?
Oh, he could be cold. Oops, sorry about that. That's bad. What's that? Hans, oh, he went out for MV8?
Before we go any further, I know that we've talked about MV2. I wonder if, because of the cost of having to basically remove all the soil, if maybe the proponent wants to go back to a survey to find a location, because nobody's going to spend $993,000 to dig up a dump and then put soil back in to put a pickleball court.
We'll be working with him. Rick, you have a question before I go to the next one?
No, I just said that was our recommendation that think about it
Yeah.
at the last meeting. So I would expect we'd hear on the next round when
April
that's up
18th.
where
Okay,
what they
well,
feel.
the printout is.
But we
went
did
the
it.
other
We
direction.
did that one last meeting.
Yeah.
So
I
it's
just-
had its
I
time.
didn't change my,
Yeah, well, I just want to be certain.
okay, so we'll go to MV12 first. This is the Via Appraisal basketball court. So I've kind of got two recommendations. It came in to reconstruct, resurface the existing basketball court area. That'd be a range of about 111,000, work on there. And what the option two to come up if we wanted to make it regulation size for high school, which is the same as what we have down at Foam and Cannery Row. It's gonna be MV12. This is MV12, the basketball court, the Appraisal court. The initial project submittal was to reconstruct, resurface the court. So when I get there to make it enlarged, if it high school basketball, I'd need to bring the court back over towards this walkway and relocate the bench. And as you'll see, I've got enough top of slope over here, but all these pine trees have been topped and they're very bushy. We'd have to trim back some of these branches. You'll see that coming up. We're also looking into, could we expand it to make it more compliant to at least high school standards? If we can, we could come this way towards the ball field. We got some room to relocate those benches. There's a tap here. And on the back side, there's actually a fair amount of bank still left. We get to the top of bank, in the trunk of these trees. But the issue would be coming into the branches, how far we could expand it. These trees look like they've all been topped. And more like kind of a bush going up. We'd have to take a look, but I've got, as you can see, maybe you can't see. There we go. I got a fair amount between the fence and the actual trunks of the trees and also the top of the bank. We would expand expand this way, but we'd have to trim these trees to make that happen if we were to expand this court instead of just reconstructing the surface. So like I say, my biggest concern is because those trees have been topped, they've grown as a bush, not like a regular Monterey pine where they grow up and lose all their lower limbs. So I haven't worked with forestry on this. Hans, or Bruce, you want to add to this in your neighborhood? Then I'll open up to questions.
Not too much. The basketball court isn't used a whole lot. Now, maybe that'll change with the expansion. And the bank where those trees are is pretty steep because that's fill. So I'll leave that.
That's why you see the significant construction costs. I need to reconstruct and build that top of bank area.
Yeah.
Sharon?
One, we don't have the write-up. We don't have the submission in our book here for this project. We have 11, and then we go to New Monterey. So we need a copy.
This was a CW. They moved it to MV12.
Yeah.
It was CW 28.
Okay. And I'm wondering, I mean, just as it was with our recreation pool at the sports center, it wasn't intended that it be for the high school use. It's a recreation place where kids can come, parents with their kids can play. I mean, it isn't, and I don't understand why if they're asking for it to be resurfaced, I don't see why we're talking about expanding it.
Okay, it came up in conversation. I just itemized it. We'll go back to the applicants, which way they want to go. Rick?
I think the key is come voting night, we just know which way that the applicants wanted to go.
Yeah.
And I think when saying it's high school standards, it's the size of the court. It's not necessarily for the high school to be playing basketball on.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification.
I hope we know before voting night.
Yeah, we'll come back here in May, on May 2nd. Bruce?
You know, seeing the drawing here, I'm a little concerned about the pushing right up against the path. That's unlike the basketball court, that path is used a lot by walkers. So I don't know if that's a problem or not, but.
All right, we'll take that into consideration. Anybody in the public have a comment on MV12 now, which was CW 28?
I will make a point at the Parks and Rec meeting to talk about, or ask you to do, to talk to them about the alternative, because when you crowd the path and you're going into the trees and you're going into a slope, this is significant. It's one thing to say we want to resurface the court. It's a whole other thing to say we're going to take up a lot more space.
Okay, that will do. That'll be next Wednesday.
I agree with that.
Okay. So now I'm going to go back to MV9, which was out of sequence. There we go. This is Via Del Pinar Realignment at Via Del Rey. This is Via Del Rey going up through here, Via Del Pinar, and this is Via Chiquita. So basically, it's kind of a wide open space, and there's not really delineation of the road edge that comes through this curve through here.
Did we have this last year?
This was last year, yes, sir. This is MV9, Via Del Pinar Realignment in Via Del Rey. The intent is to narrow up this alignment to Via Del Pinar and Via Del Rey. So where you see the inlet there, we'll be coming out towards the stop sign, making this 526, 24 wide street. Also define the road width. So basically, if we narrowing the roadway down, we kind of bring this Via Del Pinar into a T intersection into a Via Del Rey. As it comes through here, Via Del Rey, as it kind of gets lost in the on-street parking, you didn't have that center line to follow. It's a little tough to follow the edge of this as it kind of comes into Via Chiquita. So the project will also redefine the alignment come along the Via Chiquita. This is the MV9. Bruce, you want to add anything to this one?
Yes. So did a lot of traffic calming things. This is an example of what she would have done. Now, the problem here is that lately there's been accidents because this is another speedway in the Monte Vista neighborhood. People come down the Via Del Rey really quickly, so quickly at night. Usually they're drunk. I think it's the teenagers partying up in the park, that they lose the corner and they go straight into Via Del Pinar. So there's been 4 cars crashed into because of that those cars crashed into were on Via Del Pinar. What you're doing here is you're taking a street that is a very narrow street, that being Via Del Pinar, and it opens up when it gets to, I think you can kind of see it there. It opens up when it gets to, when it meets Via Del Rey, and what the plan is here from your department is to just allow that street to go down the hill where most of the traffic from Via Pinar would go anyway, Via Pinar, because that's, they're mostly going downtown and so forth. And it's literally not letting the traffic so easy. They have to make a turn going downhill, and you're removing the part that goes uphill. So therefore, the fast-moving traffic coming down Via Del Rey won't be able to launch into Via Del Pinar.
So if you look at my exhibit, this is the existing edge of roadway. What he's going to lead is he can come down here and go this way because it goes that way. That's why we're neck with this down to make it more of a T coming into the curve here instead of they'd have to come around the curve and kind of aligns them up to go on down the hill. And then this was, like I said, this was a project last year, just didn't get the funding. Sharon?
Curb and gutter, concrete curb and gutter?
Yes, that's what we're proposing. That's what the estimate includes.
Okay, can we do this van tour also?
Can you tell me if the adjacent neighbors have consensus on this project?
Yes.
All of them?
Yeah, because a lot. One of them Via Del Pinar, because they had a cars crash.
I think we'll need to double check with the neighbor with their on-street parking on there. That's the one that's going to be most affected. We'll have to double check with the support on there. Anybody in the audience want to talk about MV9?
I would just suggest that you check with the traffic engineer when you making such a change.
This is per the traffic engineer.
Okay, because sometimes your fix may make it more dangerous for people coming down. That's all I'm suggesting.
Okay, thank you. All right, MV9.
There were 3 projects that Hans couldn't speak to.
I think we're done because we'd already talked about MV2 last time. We were done with Monte Vista. I'll bring Hans in.
He has issues. Yes.
No problem.
We need entertainment.
How are we doing before we start another neighborhood? You guys want to take a quick 5 minutes? Or shall we continue? Because we've got about 9 or 10 in Monte Vista, New Monterey. Keep going?
Keep going.
All right. I know we have a long night, so we have a lot to cover. Oh, yeah. It'll help if I go the right way. New Monterey 1, this is a 900 block of Lily Street. I have my older exhibit on here. I went and looked at this. There's a power pole and anchor in the way. We actually kept the bulb out over and brought it in. So this is a little bit narrow in this section there. This is David Avenue. Lily Street goes over here. This is Line Street, so 98% of all the work is within the city of Monterey. We do have to go a little bit into PG to match and tie into the existing curb gutter and sidewalk there. Let's see. This is New Monterey 1. This west is the 900 block of Lily Street that goes between Prescott, or David Avenue and Light. This is one of the original roads in New Monterey where they're only 24 feet wide. So we have quite expansive 12 feet from the curb. So it's a typical block widening where we move the curb and gutter back, allows the on-street parking. This was the anchor and pole I talked about. So after coming out of Line Street, then we'll come back in, allow the on-street parking and a new sidewalk. Main Street, this is a PG line.
Yes. So the sidewalk on the left side of the street, where they don't have it already, curb gets moved over 6 feet, which then pretty much aligns with the Pacific Grove over there. And then on the right-hand side again, moving the curb over 6 feet, and we're gonna have a bulb here at the corner. So that this sidewalk will be removed and moved over, curb moved 6 feet.
Yeah, we'll keep a bulb at both the curb return here and at the driveways there and the curb of the street. New Monterey 1.
We have only something like 4 or 5 streets that actually connect from David Avenue over to Pacific Grove. So there's a good volume of traffic on any of these little streets. And the property owner to the left, as you're looking at this, has no sidewalk, would like sidewalk. And in order for us to actually have 2 lanes of travel plus parking, we need to do the widening. There is support for it.
Any other comments, questions? Rick?
Yeah, I mean, we've done a lot of street widening in New Monterey because a lot of those, when you get cars parking up on sidewalks and all the rest, you don't get fire trucks through either. So, yeah, it's been an ongoing thing. Just it's actually a nice price compared to most of the previous ones.
It's a short block. 500 Oaks coming up. Anybody in the audience have a comment or question on New Monterey 1?
Thank you. Good evening. I'm the property owner. I own the property at 1202. There's really 3 things, and the fire truck example's a 4th. It was great that you took the video today because you saw somebody left their treasure cat litter box out for someone to pick up because they need a cat litter box. But there have been tubs out there, dressers. So it's the yard sale. Secondly, I maintain that side. It's uneven ground. There are gophers. I'm worried that somebody's going to break an ankle. And then the third is we work on, the city's working on different things. That's the place where heavy construction equipment typically gets parked, and there's a sidewalk that you can't really see anymore because it's been crushed by the heavy equipment that's been parked up there. So when I originally made this proposal, the request was if you finish the sidewalk, I hadn't envisioned widening it. If you finish the sidewalk, I'll landscape it, and then we'll avoid people hopefully using it for their dumping ground. And then by putting the sidewalk in, it would obviously make it safer for foot traffic. So thank you for your consideration.
So typically in New Monterey, once we widen, you'll have about a 2.5-foot strip between the back of walk and your fence there.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else in the audience like to talk to New Monterey 1? I'll bring that back. No other comments? All right. New Monterey 2, this is the Hawthorne-Bolio bicycle ramp connection. There was a plan done years ago at Hawthorne and Bolio. We'd gotten a grant to preliminary design. You'll see from the video, we're probably, I think since that time when this was done, the Army has put their gatehouse in a certain location about here, and we'd probably end up redesigning this. We can match the grade in there. I think I can reduce some of the retaining walls that were preliminary designed. This is for design and get through the NEPA, because I'll be working with the Army, and get the Army's approval. In the past, we tried to go after grants for this, but we were unable to go because the Army hadn't given a letter of approval, so we actually couldn't meet some of the grant deadlines on this. So this is a fund to get through the design and the going through the getting the Army's approval, which make us eligible. Oh, wrong one. New Monterey 2. New Monterey 2, Hawthorne Bolio connection for a bike path to get from Hawthorne Street up through the Lower Presidio.
Yes, and we're talking here about the design. The thought has been to start over here on the left side. You keep the retaining wall that's already there. You do an L dog leg. And so you do retaining wall holding the Presidio side up, and you do your transition ramp until you get up to the street level, a little farther down.
New Monterey 2.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to go first?
No, it's your project. You go first. You get to go first. I'm just waiting in line for after.
The alternative transportation plan that the city adopted calls for pedestrian and bicycle to be transitioning from Pacific Grove across New Monterey, come through this ramp area, go across the Presidio, and then tie in with Pacific Street on the other side. The Parks and Rec Commission very much supports anything that's going to take commuting bicycles off of the rec trail. This is designed only because we can't get the Army's letter of approval until we have a funded project. That's what it boils down to. And we can't get other people's money, grant money to support bicycle and pedestrian project until we have the Army approval, if there's archaeological, any of that stuff. It has to be built in a short period of time. So we're doing all of the time-intensive stuff first, and then get somebody else's money to help us build it.
Rick.
Before we vote on this, I'd like to know what the neighbors on this end of the street think about this project, because I remember this was before us several years back, and they were not crazy about it, because it's a drastic change in basically their neighbor and their street. All of a sudden, you're going to have through aspects going.
And I can tell you that a letter has gone out to every single property owner and all of the tenants in that block. And at this point, we have approval from 5 out of 9 properties. So
Yeah.
we have a majority.
Yeah, and if we can see it at voting night. And so I'm trying to understand what it is we're doing here, because this is doing design for work on land that's not owned by the city.
Well, actually,
And our standards say, prior to doing any of that and spending any money, we have to have an approval. So what I'm hearing is, it's a catch-22, because the Army won't approve anything until they have a design.
Except,
and it's in our, I'll have to check it. Maybe it's pretty close to our lease area, but I'll check.
Yeah, I mean, so I just need clarification,
center.
because it'll be the first time ever we would be spending money without the jurisdiction doing it, which is not our policy. But let's see where it is as it relates to the lease area and all the rest.
the city has a long-term lease for the historic park, and this is coming into that historic park. So we do have a lease over it, and there's $1 million gate that the Army is unable to get funded through the federal budget to redo that entire entry. So it isn't a big deal. We've talked with the garrison commanders in the last couple of years as we've been working on this, and they are saying it isn't a problem to move the gate, because as it's been, they've been moving down into our leasehold. So they'll work with us.
What would be helpful for us to see prior to voting night is a schematic showing where this is going to go in current scenario, not before, and what area it's going through. Is it the city lease? Is it not the city lease? And where it hits the city. is to make sure where we're actually
Yeah,
proposing the work.
I'll put the lease limit lines on this exhibit. Maybe we'll expand it down so you can see how it ties into the other two NIP projects we have crossing. Okay, I'd like to open this up to public comment.
If you pull this off, the Bell Club Monterey is going to be very happy about it. I will be very happy about it as one of the writers. This looks like, if I understand it correctly, this is the missing piece of the puzzle to getting to Elizabeth Carricker's plan, which was to get, we have this bottleneck on the bike path right in that area, and this gets a second bike path, essentially pedestrian and bike path on the other side of the street. It's really needed because that whole thing is a bottleneck. You end up with bikes. I mean, we end up riding on that fast-moving traffic on Pacific Street in order to get to the other side if we happen to be up that high or we're trying to stay off the bike path or whatever. We have 3 rides on Saturday morning that come back that way. So this would be very helpful. This again, if you can pull this off, this is a big thing. Thanks.
Great. Well, much of what I was going to say has already been said. So I'm one of those renters that lives right on that block. So I've been talking to neighbors. Most of them are really excited about it. They can walk their dog in the park. It not only opens up the transportation options for people coming in from New Monterey and Pacific Grove, either for bike rides or commuting to work as well. I know several people that would like to do that, which then takes cars off the road and helps with the tunnel and that side of things. It also opens up a big green space for people to use the Lower Presidio, which is a great asset that the city has that I think is pretty underutilized. So the neighbors, and I'm not in touch personally with a lot of the absentee landlords, but as far as the neighbors that live there, they're pretty excited about it. So thank you for considering this.
Thank you.
Well, it seems everybody is very pleased about this. My father owns property at the end of this street, and I would not be pleased. This has been a footprint for a very long time. It's a very peaceful area, very quiet, and we do have tenants, and they appreciate not having strangers come and go, and I don't see the plus to it. I think there's plenty of bike paths. I think this area has been kept untouched for many years before probably a lot of you even lived here. This was my grandparents' property. So I'm looking for a win-win, and I don't see it. I just see that everybody really wants to have this done, and not all the tenants on this street are for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We continue to get comments back. I'll share those as we go.
Mike?
I walk a lot, and that's one area that it's very difficult to walk. You typically have to walk down and go on the other side. I've always thought that if we could utilize some of that Lower Presidio, that is some of the oldest history in the state of California, that we would have a valuable, at least exhibit to see some of that. And the views, if you want to look at a view and then look at that from that Lower Presidio out over the bay, it's a gorgeous view, but it's very difficult to get at. And I think that this would be exhibiting one of Monterey's treasures, so I would encourage it.
Richard?
Yeah, I heard the numbers 5 out of 9. Some of them are tenants, not property owners. I know this project came before us, and some of the owners of the property, they're in a dead-end street. They didn't want to see this. So I really want to see with the owners of the property. This is like a traffic calming project. I mean, you're actually getting this project on their property. It's not going to be in the street.
Right. It's going to come from the sidewalk It will not be changing anybody's frontage.
It's all, the portion on Hawthorne is all within the street right-of-way, just a connection to where the portion that gets built on private property is the Presidio Monterey.
It changes the character of the street. I want to see consensus, so that's what I'm going to be looking for is consensus of the owners and the tenants, because the owners eventually have the final word.
I'll be sharing those numbers.
Rick?
I also want to echo the aspect of make sure it's also the owners, because before I'm going to support, in effect, putting a thoroughfare through a neighborhood street that's a dead end and always has been, I want to make sure everyone there is okay with it. I agree with all the aspects and all the benefits. It would be great to have it through. But from my standpoint, I'm not going to support anything anywhere in the city if we're transferring basically through traffic through a dead-end street that people bought as a dead-end street, they've lived there as a dead-end street, and now we're going to totally change the character. So before I'm going to support that, I want to make sure the people there support it.
All right, thank you.
My question is, has anybody looked at any other options to tie that area together? Because if you go down Reeside and you come down to the corner there, there's a big sidewalk there. Across the street in front of the Coast Guard is what I call the block to nowhere. There's a sidewalk there that doesn't go anywhere. So is there any way to get creative with the street and create the walkway? Because Reeside is almost 4 lanes wide. It's really wide now because it's one way. To come down there, come across in front of Lighthouse, and then come up and around. That doesn't impact the neighborhood. You've got a lot of room there between Reeside. You've got you've got a block across the street that has a sidewalk. I call it the block to nowhere. It doesn't go anywhere. It's one block of sidewalk that doesn't tie into anything. So is there any way to adjust that to make that now a bikeway in front of that on Lighthouse, and then come up and around? Thank you.
All right. New Monterey 2. You just sparked the thought there, so see what I can do. New Monterey 4, this is the Oak Street 500 block widening. The request, basically, it's one of those 24-foot wide streets. They do a typical widening in New Monterey, and it also has a city park parcel adjacent to it. Let's see.
I remember the first one was 46,000.
New Monterey, the 500 block, the widening of Oak Street.
The next block that you see has already been widened. You saw this one last year at the request. We would leave both of the corners, widen, move the curb and gutter over 6 feet in both directions. And then there will be some sort of moved over a little bit to keep the trees, meander the walkway through the park. And get both.
All street connected into the walkway into the park, there's one here, one down there at the end of the block, where you set survey van, we'll be folded out to preserve the Oak Tree, no one power pole. 500 block, New Monterey widening.
You saw this project last year. It just gets more expensive every year. We've circulated the letter. We're getting the responses back. I'll be able to tell you, we had more than 50% of the people saying yes last year. Last year, you'll remember with the video, without any prompting, we had people walking their dog with their children down the middle of the street. It's a problem. Oak and Newton are the 2 streets that get to the park. It's been bad. It continues to be bad. It isn't going to get any better. So if we can move the curb and gutter back over, then there will be legal widths of parking on the street and then sidewalks that can carry the pedestrians safely.
Jamie?
Does this need a crosswalk at the north or the east or the right end? Because that's where people are going to want to cross to the park.
We've got curb ramps there.
Okay.
At the intersection, we already have a ramp that goes into sidewalk.
Yes.
How much would it reduce the cost of this thing if the meandering sidewalk in the park, which appears to be kind of a different thing, were not included?
Well, I'm connecting up to here. It's this section there and this section there.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons. It's probably, I'd have to double check the thing, but it's only about 30,000 of the big ticket item, but it want to connect the walkway up to the park. The significant cost is really moving it over curb ramps, but there is a little bit of extra than a normal block line dudes just because we want to connect the park and the walkways up. Tom?
Quick question. Is there any way you could do one side of the street 1 year as phase one and the other side of the street phase two to make it more reduce the, instead of one big project, doing it in two parts?
We could phase it. I mean, it's something that, this has been before our committee probably off and on for the last 10 years. 4 or 5 times it's come.
So I can see, we would design the entire thing.
We could phase it.
Construction in phases.
Yeah, we could do the design first. We can do a third of the money or half the money. So
Just see what options there might be for
Sure.
phasing that would make sense
yeah,
to get it, because it needs to happen. It's just, and it's going to keep getting expensive, but it's a big bite.
Good idea. Thank you. Anybody in the audience want to talk about New Monterey 4? All right. New Monterey 5, this is a 1700 block of Prescott. Basically, there's a DG sidewalk here through now, about a third of the block comes through. We just did 2 years ago, did a project here, did all the curb ramps, and it replaces a sidewalk that was DG. This is New Monterey 5, 1740 Prescott, replacing the DG sidewalk here.
Yes. This is a project that was constructed many years ago. There used to be a massive pine tree over to our right. The tree died. And that's why DG was put in when the city originally put this sidewalk in. Now the owner is asking, could they please have a concrete sidewalk? There's no reason to keep DG. So it's this little stretch of sidewalk plus making the 2 driveways conform.
New Monterey 5.
Jeff has informed me that ADA has a new standard for driveways, and so the driveway for this house, and then immediately on the other side of the property line, there's another driveway, and then concrete sidewalk, which we don't have to touch.
Yeah. Anybody in the audience want to talk about New Monterey 5? All right. New Monterey 6, the request is to paint a mural on the water tank right off the rec trail down there by our Drake, where the rec trail crosses Drake. This is actually a tank that's on private property.
On private property, we can't do anything.
We'd have to have a memorandum of understanding.
I was going to wait for you to do the video, but I'll just jump in here and say,
If I could find it.
when the Ocean View Plaza project was going through the planning, this tank and 2 others were deemed to be of historic significance to the historic district. So to do a cheerful little mural of any sort on the historic tank seems unwise.
Yeah, it's no longer a historic tank then.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the property owner of the whole Ocean View Plaza project, they are arguing in court over who actually owns it. So there's no one to execute a memorandum of understanding at this time. Until, I mean, each one is absolutely certain they own it. There was an auction, a distress, or whatever it was, and new property owner came in, plunked their money down, but it's being argued in court. So I truly don't see this being a project.
And
Rick first.
this is one of the very few places in Monterey that still looks like Steinbeck's Cannery Row. I like it exactly the way it is, and we ought to leave it.
Other than getting rid of the graffiti and something, maybe painting it, but yeah.
Yeah, well, okay. Paint it now.
The other thing is before we would be even, I agree with Sharon, I question if it can even be a project, because we've had memorandum of understandings generally when it's a public entity-owned property, not a private property. We've never done one. And second, before doing anything, this should go in front of Historic Preservation Commission, because you're significantly changing something that's been deemed historic.
Well, I included in my cost, going through the presentations and getting input, a couple of historic, what they'd want.
We would need to know that beforehand, because if you can't change it, it's no point being a project. Or we at least, I take it back, we at least need to know that at the time of voting, because only the applicant that can actually withdraw it, but we need to know. But the bigger question is can we even do an MOU on private property that's privately not public entity owned?
Yeah, we've had an easement for a drainage project that was public water that was damaging private property. But and memorandum of understanding has only been done with the county, other jurisdictions. It hasn't ever been a private property owner, and in this case, we don't have I mean, it isn't settled legally who could sign it anyway. I don't see it.
All righty. Anybody in the public want to talk about New Monterey 6?
Just quickly, it would be nice to see it just completely rust-colored. I agree with the...
Quick question? Oops.
Hold on. I'll bring it back.
This property is under questionable ownership. How do you know to whom to go to sign a document when, up until a court rules, that could be years?
Yeah.
This question's already come to the city on one occasion at the Planning Commission, so it's still an issue. Thank you.
I think, Jeff, you need to get the city attorney's ruling on whether or not we can do a project on private property and can even do an MOU on it, because it was a lot of controversy of whether or not we can even do an easement to do the drainage aspect.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
An easement is legally binding and recorded with the county and all the rest. This is an agreement that ownership changes and they don't necessarily have to live up to it.
True. All right. New Monterey 7, this is, we were funded for design. I have not implemented and got through the design of the Cannery Row Public Restroom. The request came in to fund the construction portion of the restroom, pending me getting the design done. New Monterey 7, we're at Bruce Harris Way, next to the fish shacks. Cannery Row's down there. Rec trail's up here. This was a project that was funded for design last year. Unfortunately, I have not implemented the design, and so the suggest now is for construction money.
Yes, it seems to me, since there are still some variables that haven't been worked out, it may be a little early for us to be funding this. But this is a location for New Monterey 7.
So I'll just repeat. It was done in phases, thinking, okay, we'll get a design. We'll figure out how much is it going to cost to have the water. There is a something in the, I mean, there's a lid right there. We assume there's water that we could tap into. And then, how much is it going to cost to do the sewer line? We think we know how that would be done. We think we know that the size of 2 stalls will fit there. But it hasn't been designed yet. So the idea was, well, once we have a design, then we'll build it. I just don't think that this one is ready to go. I mean, here's a dollar amount, but we still don't have a design. And is this enough? Is it too much? I don't know.
Richard?
Yeah, I know we requested the council to come up with a public restroom policy. And the whole idea is, what do we have to do to keep them open and not closed? And how do we keep them maintained so they're open when people need them and not closed at sunset? So that's coming up on the agenda in the council, isn't it?
No, it's not.
Well, what do we do to get a policy? Because we're putting restrooms all
You'll
over
see
the city.
coming up, one of the
And I-
citywide, that Jamie, we've altered her request to do that study, do that commitment, see where the need is for restrooms, what the city wants to fund to maintain and own them, and the maintenance of them, keep them open, what hours. That'd be the first phase. Then where can we implement and put the Portland loos, or what type of bathroom they want. So, but we need to get in front of the council, it'd be multiple meetings just to get that kind of direction.
If I could follow up, the Portland Loo we assigned to near the kayak building, is that going in or is that waiting for this policy too?
I'm currently working on it, but I lost my engineer, so we'll see how it
Can't
goes.
find your engineer?
Well, no, and I changed engineers, so I'm doing that thing, so it's not going as fast as I thought. Rick?
I take it design will not be done by voting night?
It will not be.
I just wanted to check. In which case, I agree with Sharon. The applicant might want to be contacted and suggest maybe you withdraw until next year because it's premature. Until we have a design, there's no way of knowing for sure what the cost is going to be or if it's even going to fit there.
Just quick, are these both Portland loos?
Well,
This is a new design then?
No, this was a design to go in and tie into the historic place that it's going into.
Yeah, we'd want to design this
This
one
is
probably
something
match,
different then, okay.
match the fish shacks there. All right. Anybody in the public want to talk about New Monterey 7? New Monterey 8, this is Schultz Park. There's 2 projects, a walkway and outdoor fitness station in Schultz Park. Let's see. This is New Monterey 8, the Schultz Senior Center. There's 2 items of this. One, doing a phase 4 of the sidewalk up by Lighthouse Curve. Another work that's currently funded. The other section is to put in exercise equipment down here in the lower portion, backside of the Schultz Center, which will need to reconstruct the walkways.
And so one design shows putting several pieces of play equipment here in what has been our barbecue and picnic area. The neighborhood does not support that. And then the alternative is to do a park course, couple on each side of the walkway. And in that way, we travel from one piece of play equipment to another, you continue to have the green grass around it. And we can make improvements in the future to our picnic area and get more opportunities next year.
The other part that ties in, we're currently funded, trying to go out to bid here, and design from up here to the backside, where that stucco wall is gonna get removed. We're actually, in that big, light colored green bush right there, we're actually gonna have a seating area that sticks out and comes out into the park. In phase 4 is put a set of stairs down from the mid-lot seating area and redo the walkway at the base of that wall and tie into the other walkways here at the park. New Monterey 8. And so I'll know, hopefully the first meeting in May, if the CDBG funds we applied for to pay for the walkway up on top on Lighthouse, if we're gonna be going forward with the CDBG. So like I say, when we went through, we had the one area down here, which is next to the building, which is the picnic area. that Sharon talked about. The other way would be to put some par courts off along the walkway, extend it out. So the cost reflects this because there's more walkway we'd rebuild. And this is that area that's currently funded in design. We're getting ready to finish it up and get out the bid. And then this is the walkway that's been right now in the CDBG funding. Sharon, you want to add to this?
Yes. At our annual meeting, there were lots of residents there. We talked about the alternatives. The desire is to go back to having a barbecue area because there's been very little use of this part of the park. The homeless had taken it over. And so Parks folks removed some of the tables and benches. We'd like to have the tables and benches back. There's a little barbecue area there. And so by having exercise equipment there, it would encourage locals to be using it on the way to and from the rec trail, which is, I mean, this is a popular route. So there would be a presence. It would be less desirable for the homeless. And then maybe we can get our barbecue area back again. So taking over the picnic area and making it an exercise area is not what our neighborhood wants to see. And if it's done now, then eventually we're going to want to move the stuff. We don't see it as being a permanent location for it because we've got another desire. We want the barbecue area. So.
Rick.
Last year, didn't we have a project that was for ADA access through the park and walkway?
It's funded. It's going out for design.
So-
We're at bid. It didn't work. It didn't include this lower portion down below.
Okay.
Yes, and the little dog leg, the rounded walkway, part of the design shows stairs that come down from the projection, the seating projection that's off of the lighthouse retaining wall.
That's this area here.
It is not a frequently used area. It's expensive to put stairs down and then redo the bricks so that they meet ADA requirement. We're saying put the money where the exercise stuff is, the pathway to it, do the ADA that you need to do there. Don't do the part where the projection is. Just don't spend the money. Because I don't remember exactly, it was 80 or $95,000 for the stairs down and then redoing all the bricks. People are going to enjoy that park without that. It could be that the bricks just get removed. So that's why we're.
Is the exercise power equipment for the seniors or for the public?
I like brick.
It's for adults.
Because you kept using the word play equipment.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Sharon
got me
was
mixed up.
Sharon was showing her age. I apologize. It's exercise equipment. I heard myself saying it and went, oh.
I am recalling what happened next to Pete's, where, what is it, a beer garden now? They had to take it out. Trying to build something that is not a potential site for homeless. It's a very difficult thing to do if there aren't people around all the time. And even if they are, like right across from Seminole Plaza, it didn't work. It was taken over by the homeless. I think the old rule of unintended consequences, you really need to think that through before and ask some people again, because I think this could be a choice location for that rule to kick in.
I'm not at all certain that we're going to have anywhere near the number of people using exercise equipment versus people who would come to have a social gathering out in the sun by the recreation center. There will be more people who will end up using the seating. Okay.
Anybody?
You understand it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Anybody in the audience want to talk about New Monterey 8? All right. New Monterey 9, this is for design only of the intersection of David Avenue and Spencer. Spencer. The request is to redo this intersection, we'll be bolted in, but just only on David Avenue. Spencer is already bolted in, and we'll be bolted in on the other side of Spencer, the PG side.
Yeah, so this is all Monterey, both sides of the street are Monterey. We have high accidents here. I think with the price tag, we may very well be looking at design only, design and all of the other stuff that goes with it, and then maybe we can get somebody else with money to help us build it.
New Monterey.
This is another one of those transition roads that goes from Pacific Grove into, in this case, Lower New Monterey. It's below Pine. There are accidents. You're seeing pavers here. There would not be pavers. We're not going to go with pavers. And one thing that we are going to have to do, that is something I'm doing in the next week, is getting the letters out to all the property owners and make certain that they understand what implications it'll have on their parking. But there's no question, this is one that is being driven by accidents. Property injury, I mean, it's happening here.
Rick.
Yeah, this looks like you're putting in new handicap ramps and storm drain work here as well as part of this?
It's, yeah, for construction. I have storm drain work and ramps to build.
Is David Avenue, where's David Avenue on Measure P/S? Because Measure P and S covers handicap ramps and things. So if that's slated to happen there at some point, potentially some of the costs for those, yeah.
It could be a cost sharing.
Yeah, because if part of Measure P or S right now, if you don't do this, is having to rebuild those handicap ramps, it'd be, well, yeah.
They'll do them without the bulb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but
No.
it would be costs that would have been part of it that could be deferring. We don't want to tear them out after having just put them in.
And Jeff pointed out that because of the accidents, it actually would be eligible for some grant money. So
Yeah.
if we can get the design in place, then we can go for someone else's money to help us build it.
And one thing I did find out, a little more research, this is, when you have a large project like we did Castellaria Del Monte, grants are eligible. I checked, we did a little bit of checking this week. Smaller grants have kind of dried up, but we'd always look for it, look for money. Anybody in the audience want to talk about New Monterey Nine? Okay.
I just have one question for Sharon. What happened? Only 9 projects?
But I think if we added them up, it could have been the whole pot.
It could be everything.
Dennis?
I know, I've had 30 before.
Yeah, Dennis.
It's the 15 that haven't been done yet from last, previously funded.
Okay.
Can we have a 2-minute leg stretcher or something?
Yeah, why don't we take, you want 5 or 10? 5 minutes? We'll shoot for 5 and get everybody back. All right, let's do that.
My wife was right. She said it's going to be a late night.
Yeah.
A lot of city.
No. But one of the things is, there has to be a way to find.
Okay, we'll get back in the rail. I think what we're gonna do is, we have just a few members of the public here to talk about just some specific items. I like to take them out of sequence. We'll go to those. And I think what I'll do is I'll just open up my video instead of you listening to that and me telling you again. Once I get a good spot in the video where you can see what the actual ramification of the projects is in the field, I might just stop it there and just say it once. We'll pull the video out. We'll see how well this works, because we do got a few projects and try to get through the night here. So, you got the beach access, Villa Del Monte 5, I think. We got citywide, the rec trail, Mr. Hills, the study, and those are the public input we have here. And Mike, we have your Portland Lou. So why don't we, let me see where it's at. So I can
just-
jump right to,
Jeff, I just wonder if we're going to get to citywide tonight. I honestly
I'd like to
think,
take at least the ones that people came here and sat through the night so they can get their public input on it. Kind of go different. So why don't I go straight to VDM 5? That's the next in sequence. So this is the Peter Ferrante Playground Improvement Phase 1. We're currently been working with a study. We're going to council in April. Recommendation's going to be to make the section of Del Robos between Garden and Palo Verde one-way. And this has come from the typical other NIP study that studied the park. So the request is to maybe we'd expand the playground area, make this one-way, put angled parking in next to the park, and we'd have this one-way. Like I say, it's going to council, and I think the 18th is scheduled now for council to consider turning this section of roadway into one-way, which would make it eligible. So what we have is the total phase 1 would be the, I have street design, get the street design, all the improvements done. Construction's $400,000, and then we have playground equipment, could be phase 2, be about $340. Right now, it's itemized out for doing more of like a Tatum Garden kind of playground equipment, expands it out, puts an entire rubber surface through. This would be a phased construction job, and let me, I don't know if we'll see if, I don't think the video is going to show much more than what we have. We'll see. To stop here. So basically what it is, there's a two-way street in Del Robos. We're proposing to make it one-way coming around, and this playground area will expand out over to this curb there, and also allow larger area for the tables are back there in the trees. Dwayne, you want to add to this before I open up the public?
Well, I've got the applicant, the proponent here, so I'll turn it over to Ellie.
Why don't I open up the public comment?
Thank you, Jeff, for going out of order. Good evening. My name is Ellie Hattori, and I'm the one that made the proposal for Phase 2, which was for the playground. Our family have lived across the street at 10 Del Robles for close to 50 years. We were living there when they actually put in the park initially, the playground. And I recall as a new parent how delighted I was because it was like a perfect neighborhood playground for our growing children. But to my surprise, very shortly, I realized it wasn't just a neighborhood playground. It was actually drawing in people from all over the community. During the day, I would see parents bringing in their young children that didn't live in our neighborhood because it was such a nice, safe area, and the equipment was appropriate for younger children. So that was really a great thing. I mean, we were really excited about that. So we found out that we discovered it was really utilized quite a bit, and not just during baseball season, some people might think, or when there's activities inside the ballpark. It was actually 7 days a week. We would see people there. And I myself, as a new parent, was going there at least 3-4 times a week, and I would meet people from all over the community. It was quite nice. Moving forward, many years later now, I'm still going to the park, but now as a grandparent. And I have found that nothing's really changed as far as usage of the park. It's still utilized quite heavily. There's always been two things, though, about the park that concerned me, and one was the ground cover. And I found that it was unsanitary and it could be unsafe. And the reason why is the ground cover has been like wood chips. And kids could get sliver with them. Kids would play on them in there. And it was unsanitary because it was a perfect ground for animals. And so they would play with it, and that really concerned me. So what I would love to see, and through the study, Jeff has already introduced the idea, which I've seen in many playgrounds now, is the rubberized surface covering, which would take care of all that. The second part, so that was for the the safety and how sanitary the ground cover
You're
was.
going to be coming pretty close to your 3 minutes.
Okay. The second part was the expansion. And the reason why I would love to see it expand is because of the usage, and also with so many kids there, there's often many lines waiting to utilize the equipment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just kind of, anybody else in the audience want to talk?
I live very close to that park. That's the only part of the park that our neighborhood uses. And as you say, other people do too. The playground is very well used. You know, the field isn't for us, it's for, you know, a few kids that use it for a few hours a year. But that part of the park is used and appreciated. And if it got expanded, it would be used even more. And that's one of the few areas our neighborhood would actually enjoy.
Dwayne, bring it back. Sharon?
You can go first.
No, yes, this, I can confirm going by routinely, the playground is packed. No, not at night that much, but during the day. But this, and we had a meeting out there with Jeff to get consensus, and I think we had about around 18 neighbors there, and they were all for it, so.
And the neighbors on this block, too. That's
Yeah.
significant. Sharon?
I'm looking at the picture. I want to be certain I understand. So on the outside of the fence, we can continue to have a concrete sidewalk?
Yes, we do.
And then what is
That's where the head-in parking goes to the sidewalk for all the park usage.
the crosshatch is
Angled parking.
angled parking?
So we're taking a street that has parallel parking now, making it one way so we can have angled parking on the park side. Kind of like how we did Figueroa, but Figueroa's a little wider, so we had head-in parking. We can only fit angled parking on this and keep a single lane.
And-
That's why we need to change the direction of Del Robo's block.
And the end down by the playground, is that a handicap?
Yeah, we actually had a handicap stall with a lift area there so people can get either to the playground area or get on the sidewalk and access into the park, so it kind of gives an on-street handicap parking, kind of like how we did at your Cypress Park, but this one's head-in.
Okay, where the angled parking would be, is there having to be any resurfacing or anything like that done? Or would
Roadway,
it-
yeah, we'll reconstruct this section of the roadway right there, just to get it compliant. There's the 88. The angled parking, no, we keep the existing pavement. There's
So-
no work done between here and there, just the existing street, just striping.
Just striping.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand where the $400,000 gets spent.
It does this entire expansion block of curb gutter and sidewalk. I've got some storm drain work I have to do. Does the curb ramp across the street, and then it does I have to narrow this down for Garden Road where it comes in one way, so we expand it out and only cut the street down 20 feet, because right now I have this huge 35, 40-foot roadway opening there, so we expanded this so it's only 20-foot opening to keep the one-way flow. So the expense is redoing this with the cross gutter, keeping the water flowing down there. But I still have to intercept the water here, and normally it goes over here to this little point, and we had to do some storm drain work.
So the cross gutter,
This is the cross gutter up here on Long Garden.
all of this?
Yeah, it's a bulb restricting in the street, so it's a one-way street. And we also have a cross gutter, and it keeps the flow of water going down Garden.
But that's not phase one.
Yeah, it is.
Well, we can just go, like I say, if you want to get it phase one, the design's about 80,000 by the time I get done with this. And then it's about 400,000 for the construction of all the street improvements. So phase one could be, I need to talk to you, you want 80, you want 480? Or I talk to Mrs. Hattori. What do you want to go for on voting night?
Okay.
And then for the phase two with the playground, 340,000. I'm showing my age. I remember that we would get a piece of play equipment for 30,000. It was a really,
Yeah.
really big play equipment for 40,000. So what are we going to get for 340,000?
It's one, first thing's being completely covered by the rubber. I'll check my estimate on that. I might use the one we just bid with a small quantity. And then the play equipment, equivalent to like Tatum Gardens play equipment. It's a little more, it's equipment they put in for more of the kids that are eligible can't climb on it. So it's kind of a mix. It has a regular play equipment that we have there now, then it has some special pieces we've estimated in for more of the, like the Tatum Garden type.
I'd love to see a breakout. Maybe I'll come in.
Quick question. I seem to recall that it looks like it may be, we're looking at tree cover in the lower left-hand corner of the park, that we've had a project to make that a barbecue area.
We've done
and
that.
so that's been completed?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because you can't tell from this. Okay, so nothing you're doing that's proposed on this project will impact on what we did on that project
No, sir.
that's completed. Okay, great.
I'd like this on the van tour, please.
Richard?
One quick question, because we're averaging about 15 minutes an item and there's 56 items. The parking, the diagonal parking is right out in the outfield. Will those cars be hit?
Same as the parallel park cars now. If anybody
Are
can
they
reach
being
that.
hit? That's all I,
No, they have a reduced age group at the park.
okay.
And we just redid the fence too at a previous NFP. Thank you. We'll be working with you on this one for May 2nd. Okay, so that was VDM 5. And we'll go citywide, right? Let's see. Let's say, well, I'm go, yeah, let's say, thank you very much. Let's say citywide 9, that'll be the next one in sequence.
Aquatic Center?
So, citywide 9 is a feasibility study, the aquatic center. Actually, Mr. Hill, why don't you just come up, say it more eloquently than me? Or you don't have to say, we don't have to duplicate our spiel.
I handed these out, so you have these in front of you. My name's John Hill, and I'm an alternate member from New Monterey, but I'm also your elected representative to the Monterey Peninsula Unified School District Board of Trustees. And I'm here speaking not on behalf of the board, although they're aware I'm here. I'm speaking on behalf of you. And I'm coming here to talk to you about a problem that's on the horizon and see if we want to address it. If you look at, in the material I gave you on page 5, you will see the current pools that we have. We have one at Monterey High, which is narrow, and one at Seaside High, which is a little bit wider, but is 4 feet deep. These pools are unusable for any kind of aquatic competitions, and most of the aquatic kinds of things that our kids do, they go to MPC, or they go to Santa Catalina, or they go to Hartnell, or they go somewhere else, because the pools that we have don't support it. My concern is, you may recall, and thank you very much, passed a $213 million bond a few months ago. $118 million has been allocated, and $95 million remains. And so what's going to happen in 2 to 3 years when we face that next $95 million is the pool folks are coming with bells on to get these pools upgraded. And if you look at pages 6 and 7, you see a garden variety high school swimming pool these days is $5 or $6 million. And my concern is that you got 3 high schools, you're going to want 3 pools, and I think that's a knife fight. I just think that I don't think that the board has the stomach to spend that much money on 3 separate pools. And typically what happens for school districts, I know cities never do this, but in school districts sometimes we get a pinch like that. So what we do is we put in an ersatz pool, 3 ersatz pools, which are really inadequate. We've already got those. We really don't need to put in new ones that are inadequate. So my suggestion for your consideration is on the vision statement is for us to take a look and see if we can build community-wide an internationally recognized aquatic center, potentially including cycling, running, triathlon, and Ironman training, which is a local site for training athletes at all levels and which meets and exceeds the standards established by CIF, NCAA, USA Olympics, Paralympics, Special Olympics, thereby creating a sports tourism destination location facility that builds strong minds and bodies and showcases local athletes and invites the world to train and compete at Monterey Bay. The vision is something that's on a par with Laguna Seca or the aquarium. So that is a full-blown, what I would call a full-blown aquatic center. It's going to have diving well. It'll have at least one 50-meter pool and maybe two. It will have suitable facilities for water polo. It'll be big enough that it can serve the MPUSD and the MPC during the week. And most importantly, if it's run right, like we're going to say, it can be a moneymaker. And so the intent is to create something that an event center with an events group that has the savvy to make this a moneymaker so that we can support this over the long term. Because the other thing that kills government pools is if we do spend a lot of money putting one in, we tend to get cheap in trying to maintain it, and then they don't last. So I see it as an option for us to consider. This is a feasibility study, and I'm asking for a quarter of the cost, figuring if you approve, I'll go find the money elsewhere, the rest of the money elsewhere.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. So I bring this to the board. Any questions?
Not a question, but one thing John didn't say is that the district actually has a fairly good-sized site. Whether it would be workable or not, we don't know. But lots of times it's, well, where are you going to put it and who owns it? If that site proved to be feasible, then the district already owns it. So I'm not saying that's where it would go, but there is the potential at least.
What I see on your application is a 10 million plus project, because it's more than just a pool. You're talking about the other sports. But I'm trying to envision where the people of Monterey can use this, because it sounds like it's going to be used by many different schools for competitions, and where the public fits in this scenario.
Mr. Hill, we need you to come up here and talk to the mic.
I think that's an excellent question, and I think my concern is, obviously, there's going to be the people who say we've already got too many tourists, we've already got too much traffic, we already got, whatever, and have concerns about it. I think the purpose of feasibility study is to really lay that out. Sharon mentioned the site, same thing. What do we really need? Let's go for let's shoot high, go for what really will work and be sustainable and be a long-term contribution to our community. And then we'll figure out where we can find the piece of ground. City has ground, school district has ground, others might be interested, MPC may be interested, but until we get something solid, nobody knows how to buy it.
Mr. Hill, other than Monterey High, what are the other two high schools?
Seaside and Marina.
Seaside and Marina. Those are the high schools. Does PG have a pool that's?
PG has a pool that's 25 meters by 25 yards, which means that only one activity can use it at a time. So if water polo's in it, then the swimmers are out. If the swimmers are out, then the dancers, the synchronized swimmers are in. I mean, that's what I say. It tends to happen. You keep building it smaller and smaller and smaller to save a few bucks, and by the time you're done.
So to answer Richard's question, it would benefit the Monterey schools.
We went through this issue with the sports center, whether it was going to be used for competitions or local recreation. This is the neighborhood improvement program. I ask how the people in the neighborhoods are going to be able to use this other than their children in competition in the high schools and college.
Well, I think that part of what I would assume we would be doing is looking at a variety of kinds of options it would be a different set than a different pool than the sports center pool. I mean, the sports center pool would continue and do the kind of things it does for individuals of interest in a lot of activities, but a lot of the kinds of things that, as a training pool, there certainly are a number of local swim clubs that could be using it. There are other, you certainly can build in a therapy pool could very well be part of what you're doing and using it for those kinds of uses. You'd want to be looking at that multiple uses. In there, I put in with those papers, I put a copy of a feasibility, or just the table of contents of a feasibility study done in El Segundo. Kind of the kinds of questions you begin asking in a feasibility study, which would get back to that. Is this going to be busy? Is it going to be used? And we need to find out.
Okay, thank you. Rick.
I've got a more technical question for you, Jeff, to go back to the city attorney on. Either we're doing a feasibility study for something within the city of Monterey, or this sounds like we're contributing to a feasibility study somewhere on the peninsula for this. If it's the case of on the peninsula, can we be spending NIP money on something that would be for outside of the city limits of Monterey?
When I talked to the mayor, he said no, that that's not legal counsel.
I just need to know from city attorney.
Sure.
Because to be effective, I would think it would need to be a feasibility study of the entire peninsula.
Well, and if it were to do that, then the next thing I'd do is scamper over to, if you approved it, I'd still scamper.
Yeah, I just don't know if we can spend money on that.
Well, I'll double check that.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments in the public?
So as a swimmer, my son's a diver, this would be of interest. However, the last 2 years I spent Los Alamos, New Mexico, high altitude, world-class pool, and they were so excited to get all these Olympic teams to come there and train, and it kicked the locals out and we couldn't swim. So what I see from this is, as a swimmer, I don't think I'm going to be able to use it. I would, like you say, I'd want to be darn sure that the residents of Monterey could use it. And from what that looks like, I don't think so.
Okay. Citywide 9. Oh, Tom, you have a question?
No, if they're done, I was just going to make a quick comment. If you're still taking.
I'll bring it back to the board. Public comments closed.
Just a quick comment. Our existing RV and boat storage facility, Bill Fell, city planner, and I spent off and on for 2 years to find that location within the city of Monterey. And I can tell you, I don't believe the 15 acres that the MPUSD owns along Salinas Highway the terrain is this kind of facility would work for various reasons. And then the only other place I think that might be big enough is the 125 acres along South Boundary Road. That's within the city limits of Monterey. That would be big enough for this kind of a facility. So that, other than that, you're looking at some place out in an open space where Fort Ord was. I don't see either Marina or Seaside having that. Maybe along Jim Moore they might, but then again, that would not be in the city of Seaside. It's in the city of Monterey. So the thing is, location-wise within the city of Monterey, it's very difficult to find an open, almost flat, where you could build something like this. And like I say, the acreage, and this is not one of the things that has been discussed by the city council. They spent hours and hours hashing over, finally put an RFP out about a month ago, or approved putting an RFP for that acreage along South Boundary Road. Yes. But maybe this would be a location that would be a possible location within the city. So I just suggest that.
We'll bring it up to him. Lee. Can I add something to that? Hold on. It's back on the board. It's not a public comment. Lee.
Did anybody figure out where you're going to get the water?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on. I'm going to have to move it along there. We'll adjust the water. Sharon.
I'll be there, you'll be there at Parks and Rec. I know that their thought was, we want to be certain that Monterey residents have the ability to use it. So I'll report back what they have to say.
Okay. All right. I'm going to jump citywide 17. And so the accessible beach mats request is to try to get accessible beach mats down by Wharf 2 Here's Wharf 2 there, there's the old Scout House. And so what we've shown on this side, just because of this side, we always berm it up all winter long, do a lot of tractor work in the dune here. And then what I did notice is, the mean high tide runs through here. I just doing a quick look, comes to there. So the request was to have the beach match either go to the water or out to the water and have it staked down into the sand. So we do have some help here. I'd like to bring it to the applicant, and she brought up the person that sells the mats, I think. Step on up, sir. State your name.
Good evening. My name is Alex Gerard from the company Access Rec. We manufacture ADA compliant beach access mat and vehicular decking system as well. So I believe I have something that could be of interest for you. It's a rollout matting system made of polyester.
Tell you what, I'll hand it out so you can talk in the spike. And I am going to kind of limit you to about, if you can hit the nail on this, about 3 minutes.
So the mats are used permanently or temporary, both sides.
And then the mic. We're TV, this is not TV.
The mats are used as a permanent solution on the beach or as a temporary solution. These are recent application and projects.
Okay, we'll get this too.
In California, we have LA County is a big client of ours with like multiple locations. More recently, we put some mats, a mile actually, of mats on the pier in Santa Monica to make it ADA compliant. Mats are used in Florida and everywhere in the U.S., even up to Dubai. The way they are anchored, put those mats, those stakes in the grommets. The pressure is actually not on the mat, but on the grommet. And then we connect as well the mat using these plugs here. So again, the pressure remains on the connector and not on the mat.
Okay, good.
Same move. The mat can take the surf, no problem. The only thing, they'll be covered with sand. But we actually have mats that are going into the water.
And they don't move, right?
They don't move. Most of the time, we recommend putting the mats, if they are in the water, in an area which is not too wavy, mostly bays, for example. But it is doable to do it like, on the shore, no problem.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, you were asking about slopes?
In terms of the slope, well, an access has to be ADA compliant, so it cannot go over 4% slope if it is required to be ADA compliant. Sure.
How do you when the sand covers the mat?
Shovel it, shovel the sand.
Or blow it? Can
You blow it. But the beauty of those mats is, thanks to the connectors, you can adjust the length of the access by adding mats or reducing the number of mats.
So one thing I did point out, we still have the beach. We still take the tractor down the beach with the tines. So we'd probably have to stop it a little short because we can't lift up the trailer of the beach cleaner of the tines. It's not hydraulic, it just drags on there going over the mats. The only we'd have to take in consideration for our maintenance, besides cleaning it.
Where I have heavy labor, intensive labor with the shoveling on the floor.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else in the public would like to talk about this? You want to come here and I can talk on there?
I proposed this project because I have multiple sclerosis. There's a lot of people in the handicap community that we can't get down to anywhere. The beach boardwalks are great, but then everybody has gone down to the beach to play with their dogs or family or whatever, and we're stuck up at the top. So this is something that would benefit any mobility challenged person. Women with strollers, for example, or wagons, or people that just can't walk in the sand very well. And that's the bottom line.
The one thing I will be clarifying, talking with the applicant, come back on May 2nd, what other beaches could this work at? We do have a ramp at San Carlos. I think it's about the only one possible. We're going to double take a look at that. What other beaches? You know, Del Monte Beach, we're not under 4% to get down, but there is a possibility maybe the ramp at San Carlos we could take a look at to get sanded up. If it's too steep, that's what we got to look at. Come back to May 2nd. Any other? Thank you. Any other questions?
Did I understand you to say you were talking about 10%?
It's 4%.
4%.
4%?
Yeah. But you can, if it requires to be ADA compliant. If it doesn't require to be ADA compliant, you can go up to, I don't know, 20%, 25%.
Okay. I just want to say, I know someone who lives at Del Monte Beach who is saying, yes, let's do this. There was work done at Del Monte Beach, and there was a lot of concrete, chips, broken concrete, and they put sand over it, but the concrete keeps coming up. And if there were this kind of a mat, kids could get down there without cutting their feet on the concrete that's there at Del Monte Beach. So even if if it's possible to consider that beach and not have an ADA accessible, it still would serve a great number of the people in the public. And I wanted to ask, is the cost estimate for only one beach? Are we talking 2 or 3? I mean, what for 41?
I need to go back and double check this.
So if we could get one that's ADA accessible, I definitely would like you to get a price for the Del Monte Beach access, because there's a need. And I have a neighbor who's in a chair. It's a power chair, and she says, I don't care what the grade is. She actually lives on Hoffman, a huge. We get halfway up the hill and stop and breathe. Sure. And she can take that in her chair, no problem. And as long as she's got a ramp to get on it, she's good, because she's got the power to go. So I would like us to, if we're not going to be able to look at Del Monte Beach for an ADA one, can we have one at Del Monte Beach that isn't ADA? And then if we're talking one other beach, then let's have an ADA, be certain that we have an ADA, whether that's for the Monterey Beach near the wharf or San Carlos Beach. Let's make certain we have at least one that's ADA.
Okay.
Actually, let's make certain it's the projects that's been submitted by the applicant, not one being designed by the commission.
Yeah, no.
And she wants to be able to get to the beach. Now, whether she can do it on something other than true ADA, needs to be worked out. But it's not for us to be. I love the idea of it being other places too, but I want to make sure that whatever we're talking about is something that's going to meet the applicant's.
Well, she actually
need.
mentioned. Sure. She mentioned 3 locations.
I just whatever we've got coming is, I just want to make sure it's we're not, because we decided something else.
About the cost, he was saying.
Yeah, that's what I was going to add. We're at $10 square foot. So a 5 by 50 is less than, it's $1,989.
But that's just the material, right? We have to install it?
I'll install it. If you want.
Okay.
That's easy.
Will you also maintain it?
I just want to make sure that whatever we're looking at is what the applicant's wanting, not what we're thinking.
Okay. Jamie.
Well, I was going to point out is that we actually still had, or we put in and asked for this a couple years back. Yes. And we had at that time money in our replacement pot that would be sufficient to pay for it at Del Monte Beach, and the distance is a lot less. So if we were going to experiment, we would have a lot less invested if we went to Del Monte Beach. But I'll tell you, the tractor needs to get by. So, we have to work it out. But Del Monte Beach had funding available to do this if we were going to move forward.
Okay.
I just want a 30-second comment. I've had my hand up for 5 minutes, and everybody just jumps in. There's 2 other vehicles that use that beach all the time. The police have a large ATV. They drive down in the middle of the night. And they also have a pickup truck if they don't have time to get around anything, if it's a life-saving situation. But we've been 20 minutes on this one item. There's 56 items left.
Yeah, won't get to that.
People drive on the mat, like the
That's all
lifeguard
I
in-
wanted to ask.
Yeah, they do drive. We drive.
Right.
They drive all the time.
That's all I was trying to ask.
Lifeguards
okay.
at LA County, they drive on the mat all the time.
Okay, good. Hans, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to know, what's the typical maintenance for these? Like, I mean, sand goes across them, but, do people roll them up periodically for storms and other events?
Well,
I mean, what
yeah.
is a typical maintenance throughout the year?
When you got a big storm with a big surge, people roll them up. They don't have to roll up the whole axis. They just roll up the portion of the axis that might get flooded. But in some cases, they don't have time to do it, or they just don't do it. And then in this case, the sand covers the mat. So that would be the only maintenance you would have, is really just the mat getting covered with sand once in a while. Even if there is sand on the mat, you're still providing firm surface more than the sand itself. Once again, like in the LA County, they have those mats, and they had the picture they were taken there. These mats are 2 years old or 3 years old. They have been on the beach for 3 years and barely any maintenance. And as you can see in the picture, they're covered with sand, but they still provide a firmer surface than the sand itself.
Okay, thank you. With that, any comments? Okay, we'll come back to you on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'm going to jump to Citywide 19. So disregard what I have on the screen, because I kind of messed up putting up the scope on this. But it's a rec trail safe improvements. You have the project submitter. He has these in your booklet that I gave you, the original submittal. I think at this time I'd like to call Jason to come on up and talk a little bit about this. I am going to be revising this scope, but you'll see this different on May 2nd. It's going to be more in line with his original application that you have your book, and hopefully everybody brought their book. We have some extra ones here. But Jason, if you could just, I'd like to keep this to every kind of to
Sure.
3.5. We'll get her going.
Sure,
Thank
sure
you.
will. Good evening, everybody. My name's Jason Wax. I've met some of you before. This is my 8th year working on trying to get the city to put aside a separate trail for pedestrians that could walk safely apart from bikes. I started this after I was involved in an injury accident, a non-injury accident, skin, knees, and elbows sort of injured, on the busiest part of the rec show by the wharf. And the other parties were an 80-plus-year-old couple who fell after I was stopped and fell sideways and knocked them down. It started me looking at the trail differently than I ever had before, and I went on this mission. I submitted to the city a petition. I think you have a copy. There are photographs of the petition signed by over 250 people asking the city to set aside a separate path for pedestrians. One thing after another, nothing has happened. I, for some reason, decided I would take it up again this year, but I decided I would contact the Department of Transportation at the state level and get it right from the horse's mouth what we actually had to do to be compliant with ADA and DOT standards. I contacted the office, the headquarters. The title is long. It's the Headquarters Design, Office of Standards and Procedures, Division of Design. I contacted Antoinette Clark, the chief of that office at California Department of Transportation. I was happy to be contacted back by phone from her assistant, and we've had multiple phone conversations and numerous emails. I depicted in detail the dimensions of the existing rec trail from the wharf to the Coast Guard Pier and beyond to the aquarium. I was assured in writing and verbally that what we have there is basically the gold standard nationally. There's no municipality in the country that wouldn't love to have 14 feet of nice level flat concrete that could be divided into 2 5-foot wide lanes for bikes and a 4-foot wide plus in other areas lane for pedestrians. So with that, I brought the simplest, least expensive, safest mechanism that you could possibly want to bring to you to decide on. And we have a chance with your support to, for the first time ever, allow people to walk in a relaxed and safe fashion on the rec trail without worrying about getting run over by bicycles coming up from behind. As soon as we install 2 striped lanes, 2 5-foot lanes for bicycles, one coming, they would be coming Bayside from Pacific Grove, you have people walking facing the bicycles for the first time, the way Department of Motor Vehicles tells people to walk on streets. Right now, as you know, they come up from behind unexpectedly. Are we at 3 minutes already?
It goes fast.
Seriously?
Just trying to wrap her down a little bit, give
Okay.
a little more.
Both DOT and Federal Highway Administration have updated their standards, 1917 and 18. This concept is fully compliant with them. They ask for municipalities to set aside separate lanes in congested areas. This certainly qualifies for that. It will be self-enforcing. People will enforce it so long as we have the circle and the slashes showing bikes where they cannot be and people where they can't be and where they should be. People who use it will self-enforce it, I guarantee it. You have a chance to provide an opportunity for disabled people. You'll see blind people there you've never seen before, and you'll see young kids who should be able to get around the community without the parents worrying about them. So I would encourage you to take advantage of this silver platter opportunity. It's not going to be a lot of money, and get it done. Thank you very much.
And like I say, I'll be revising the scope on this. Harlan?
Yeah, I admire your optimism about the self-enforcing part, but if there's a party of 4 or 5 tourists from out of town, they're going to be abreast all the way across.
Well, I've walked hundreds and hundreds of times. That's
Can't continue
those people who walk even 7 and 8 abreast, as soon as they get to Cannery Row, they walk in single file.
Yeah.
Lanes produce order everywhere. They do on freeways with cars, and they will with people.
The two-way lanes don't do that now.
Jeff, we can't continue
Okay.
public
We
comment.
don't need to combat that. Thank you. Richard, you had a question.
And this body does not set city policy. The city council does, and the Parks and Recreation Commission is in charge of the rec trail. So we can't use a project to set city policy. You have to start with the policymakers. So, now, I'm not asking for answers.
At the last Park and Rec Commission, they voted unanimously to support a 1-block trial on this exact
They'll
program.
give us that information then.
Pardon?
Yeah.
They'll give us that information.
Okay.
then.
But I
Yeah,
just-
we have
just
to
so
get
you
it
know,
from
the Park and
them.
Rec Commission did vote unanimously to support a 1-block trial effort of division.
We can't keep the conversation going. We will not finish.
Sharon?
Okay. Parks and Rec Commission said, do something. Do something. And what they said was, go ahead with a trial striping, divide the concrete in half, bicycles only for the concrete, pedestrians 4 foot wide minimum, DG, put the pedestrians on the DG, even though 75% of the users of the rec trail are pedestrians. They said go from Fisherman's Wharf to Coast Guard. That distance. Do the striping, see what happens. That was what it was not a unanimous vote. There were a couple of people who were saying, I'm not sure about this. But that was the communication gave us.
Anybody else in the public want to comment on this?
I like the idea of safety. You can't have a one-way lane for pedestrians when they walk both ways, so it only addresses one lane. That was a premise that he put forward. But that is one of the most popular one block in the city of Monterey. And I walk it. I don't ride bicycles anymore. I walk it. And if I'm with a friend, I'm going to be really cozy, trying to walk side by side, while the bicycles, they seem to want to do 20 miles an hour. And I don't think that's a place for it. But anyway, I welcome the idea of a test. I also have suspicions, but good luck.
Any other comments in the public? Okay. Thank you, folks, for coming tonight. Appreciate your time and input. We'll get back to the regular schedule.
Yes, please do.
I'll be talking. Well, which one's yours?
It's the CW 36.
Oh, and I got Mike's. CW. Hold on. You're right. I'll be talking to you. Thanks, Jason. Let's see. Which number are you? Sure. So this is CW 36. Its request is to repave the rec trail from Window in the Bay, Camino Estero, out to Casa Verde.
First thing, I request that instead of repave, it's repair, although it
Repair,
might be hard to do. That stretch of bike path, the rest of the bike path
Sure.
is beautiful. You know, you can ride through, no bumps, no fuss, no muss, but that section, whenever there's an issue, they just kind of let it go, and every couple of years, they spray it with orange spray paint, just to let you know that there's a hazard here. So I counted, I think it was like 56 of these orange spray painted spots between the windows on the bay and Casa Verde. So, you know, some of these would take some intensive repairing, but I think it can be repaired instead of repaved at a much lower cost.
Yes. Okay.
So,
I'll
that's
redo
all
the
I-
estimate.
Yeah, that's all I have to say on that one.
Any questions on CW 36? Comments? All right. Sharon?
One, I would like to request that the title say rec trail, and whether it says repave or repair, start with rec trail. It is not a window on the bay project, it's a rec trail project. And then window on the bay actually begins way over, even beyond Camino El Estero. So I'd like to have it be clear, where is it we're starting, and it's going over to Casa Verde, so that it's clear for us, we know where. And you say that you're going to be revising the dollar amount?
Yes, because we're going to go down to the reconstruct different sections of it. This is a cost for reconstructing the entire length.
Okay, so it's going to be more patching.
It'll be patched, yes.
Okay.
Reconstructed areas.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on CW 36? Let's get Mike. Let's go down to,
Very quickly,
what number was yours?
32, what's it?
Downtown Port Luce.
Yeah. That
So-
one surprises me at $470 because the loos are pretty cheap. They advertise. but
Let me clarify this. So this is Port and Lou's. The one Port and Lou we've installed costs us $220,000 to have that installed in place. And this also includes a cost for 2 Port and Lou's, and also do a study. If you look at your description for citywide 27, that was to have provide a study of the existing restrooms to determine where additional restrooms are needed, if the existing hours of operations are adequate, and to install a 24-hour available Port and Lou restroom. This one's El Estero. So what I did was, we have a cost of $230,000 to complete that study, get in front of council and the commissions, and come up with what they want to do to provide public restrooms. That's where I kind of came up with the cost.
You put another project on top of his project.
No, I'm just saying there's 2 projects that requested a study there's 2 project requested restrooms. The other one had a restroom either at El Estero or somewhere in the city, but in both of them, I put the cost in to do the feasibility study and get in front of council with the information to make an informed decision where they want restrooms, how many restrooms they want to own and maintain, and what kind of service hours do they want their restrooms to do. I think that needs to be answered before we go and start placing restrooms throughout the city. You want to finish, Mike? Then I'll come to questions.
My point is, and he's right, we started with Richards-Lou that didn't get built, and then we have more bathrooms, public bathrooms coming in, to the point now there's about 6 of them on the docket. And we don't have a policy, so that's what council needs to do. Personally, I've walked early morning and found feces and other things in the front of businesses or in parking lots. I said, this has got to stop. So we need to come up with a practice, a policy, and putting some public restrooms out there. And the only one that model we have that's really working is at the bus stop in front of Pete's. So look, I don't know if it's going to get done this year the way we're going, because council hasn't weighed in. I spoke with members of council. They agreed that it needs to be done. So I just wanted to say I will find the 2 locations, although I've been getting emails asking me if I would consider one here and one there, including the El Estero. So where they go, I want input, because the way one of them right now, I'm suggesting the rec trail near the municipal ward, or between them. That's not mine because you took a lot of my time. But anyway, to me, the issue comes down to where do we want them, not if we want them. We can't continue to operate. We're going to be like San Francisco, 330 pounds of stuff on one block. So, sorry it's unpleasant, Richard, but this is a health issue. Yeah, I was reading your face. Thank you.
Hold on. Sharon.
Yes. Parks and Rec talked in depth about 3 different project areas, and this was one of them. Citywide 27 and Citywide 32, both of them have to do with Portland Loos. They said, the Parks and Rec Commission said, what we need to do now is to look at what do we already have, where is it that we see it is likely we need more, and then we'll talk about coming up with some money after the city council discusses and says whether they are willing to add new restrooms. I mean, what is the city prepared to maintain? Then, I mean, this is Parks and Rec saying, after you've done that, then you start saying, let's come up with the money to purchase 1, 2, 3, whatever it is. But what they would like to do is to see 27 and 32 combined and have a study that looks at the Lake El Estero, the waterfront, the downtown, and say, what have we got? What do we need? And then go to the city council for a policy that says, how many of them are they going to keep open? I mean, can we have some 24 hours? Get the city council to set the policy. Parks and Rec said they'd rather have all of that in place before they start saying we support additional Portland Loos. So I would ask one of the proponents, are you willing to have a study that gets us to that place where we identify we have users and we need it?
Sharon, I would suggest to you that if we're going to do that, we need to include the ones on the rec trail you're proposing as well. Because
That's fine.
Then that's my issue.
Yeah.
We need them, and we need to have a plan.
We have a lot of
And we don't
public
have a
use
plan.
areas. Do we need a restroom? And if so, where and how many?
Rick.
And to be honest, I question whether that's even Parks and Rec's purview in some of the areas we're talking about. It's a bigger issue throughout the city. A lot of the areas where we need them aren't Parks and Rec areas.
True. Richard.
I agree on evaluating what we have and what we need, but you left out an important point. If it's locked up, it's useless.
Well, that's why I said, which ones are going to be 24 hours?
Well, currently, right now, everything's locked up by 10, even including the Portland Loop. Yeah.
Quick question. On the existing, do we count the one next to the volleyball court on Window on the Bay?
We haven't installed that one yet. We currently have 35.
That's why I asked the question. I think that's the longest pending project ever
It's 20 years.
in NIP history.
We currently have about 35 restrooms now that we maintain and own, and they basically open from 6 to 10, or they start shutting them down sequentially to get them down. And that's what we own and maintain now, but they're locked up.
That was not designed to be a Portland loo, but is that something maybe needs to be, if it's not built yet, that we need to look at?
No, it is a Portland Loo. I'm putting a
Oh, it
Portland
is a
Loo
Portland Loo.
next to
Okay.
Baltimore. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I've got that
The
funded,
design,
and
okay.
we're going through the process on Del Monte Beach, which I haven't started. April.
So are we putting the cart before the horse? Because it sounds like we have multiple projects, all aiming at getting us bathrooms. But if we're saying we need to have a policy from the city council, then that sort of negates putting money into all of this until
Well,
we
no,
have that.
my estimate includes, the first part's the feasibility study.
But
and-
we have multiple places, and we don't know where the city would like it to be.
And that's what
So-
the study would come up and tell us.
And these are submitted by applicants. They go up on the wall. We choose whether or not we want to go forward with them based off of what we hear or other aspects.
Yeah.
Well, we've got,
Unless the applicants want to get together and combine or withdraw or whatever, but that's not our
No,
role
we've
to
got-
get
So
them
in the
to-
interest of saving time, the applicant for number 27, which is revising that to be a study, having spent a lot of hours on the phone with the Portland Loo folks, we may actually have restrooms in the right places, and we may need to manage the hours that they're open. We may need to make small tweaks to the restrooms we haven't installed. So we're going to do a study, but that 24/7's got to stay, because as a business operator in downtown, I had to hire somebody to come in every morning to clean in front of that business. We need to get this done. So it's going to be, 27's going to be a study.
No, and install.
Well, we installed one. I put the money in to install one. But I'll
Study
talk to you if you want to get it down to just a study. What's that? All right.
Yeah, we don't need the study money in 37 if the study is the other.
This is the Fremont Street sidewalk. I'm still working on the estimate on this one.
I can't be here when you talk about it.
That's right.
Bye.
Let's see, if you could check the back room there.
Don't we have the sound of cone, things from Get Smart, the cone?
No.
Okay.
So let me stop. Basically, this is, the request is to put sidewalk, and reconstruct the sidewalk on the north side, which is cemetery side. And then also, the request was to put sidewalk down on the MPC side. Currently, the sidewalk stops and goes into MPC. I think I have the applicant here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's just, that's the main entrance point into Monterey. People can get off the bus there, and I've seen them stumble through the puddles on the road, and, all the pedestrians with MPC. It's just a high-use area. I'd love to see that. I know it would be a lot of money. I would love to be able to come here and say, oh, Katrina, that's happening with Measure P. Don't worry about it. But if it doesn't, it's really something, that is our gateway into our city. And we've got these little dirt scrubby paths full of mud and puddles. So it would be nice to be able to have pedestrian access when people walk off the bus and they're walking to and from MPC.
Just to
Safe.
clarify, Measure P or S is only street pavement. It's gutter lip. It doesn't do curb, gutter, and sidewalk. There is a section of it just for a sidewalk that's disturbed by city trees, but it won't, we wouldn't implement, it's not, those funds aren't available to put brand-new sidewalks in.
And I know this is grossly horrific, cost-wise, but if it could be split up to be done, it would be, I think it would be a real bonus for the city.
I'll work with you before the May 2nd. Or this one. Richard?
One of our NIP project was to add a lane next to MPC, which works great, but the sidewalk should be away from the curb because the cars are going over 40 miles an hour there on both sides of the street now. And so to protect the pedestrians, we shouldn't be up against the curb because you're literally inches away from cars. So, you know, if there's a way to get away from the curb a bit.
And I would say on the cemetery side, it's going to be an easier job to get a walkway in there.
Yeah.
You've got a significant slope there. You're talking major retaining wall.
Yep.
And I'm not really certain that pedestrians need to be there. I think if they
You
want.
say the NPC side?
On the MPC side.
I agree.
I think if we're going to address it, I've got no heartburn about improving the walkway next to the cemetery side. But I think we're going to invest a whole heck of a lot of money on the MPC side, and I'm not certain that that's really where pedestrians ought to be. There's a parking lot that's a little higher up, and I think if I were going to go from Sylvan over to the other side, I'd go up Fishnet and go across where the parking lots are. There's a walkway there. I just think we're going to invest a lot of money. We've got another project in here that's Pearl Street, that's also on the other side of the cemetery, and I've got the same comment there. Significant landform, and I don't know that the pedestrian actually needs to be there. We've gone a long time and there's no path. So if you're willing to do the north side only,
Because especially the bus stop there.
yeah,
And then
I
people are
see
sitting on uneven ground next to this.
real advantage that way.
So I'll change it to the one side. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you. I think we left off at Oak Grove. So obviously, we rolled meeting we didn't get through the other night, Monte Vista over, and we rolled Fish Flats into this, which kind of made this, we didn't really have 50-50 for all the projects. So I need to know how late you folks want to go tonight, 'cause it's kind of looking like we're probably going to be rolling into another meeting.
I want a policy, we do not exceed 11 o'clock. This is not survival of the fittest.
Except
It-
voting night.
Well, we should watch ourselves on voting night, too. It's not the public. Some of us are going 15, 20 minutes on each item.
This is the night.
I know
when
it
we
is, but
ask
we
the
don't have to
question.
overdo it.
This is the night. This is the time when we ask the questions.
We'll get it in there. Like I say, we weren't 50-50 this year on the projects. So Harlan, the Oak Grove 101 when it received, which we told the guy we can't do flashing yellow lights or flashing stoplights. I think my engineers talked to him, haven't confirmed. He kind of got down to just asking for some stop ahead signs. And I'll send that over to traffic and maintenance. I'll reconfirm with that, so this wouldn't be an NIP project. Anybody have comments on Oak Grove 1? Dennis? Oh. Skyline Forest 1, this is the drive. We want to redo the median and landscape it. You've seen this several years. Dennis, you want to talk to this? My picture pretty much shows the whole extent of the job. I don't think you need the video.
Saying the picture tells the story and leave it at that. The issue is the flat-sided curbs catching the tires, and this gives it a little rollover so that the trucks can drive over it rather than get slapped on it, and that's really all that's needed.
How many times has this been rebuilt?
It's never been rebuilt.
We have ducked it every year, pretty much. Louis put these nice little plants in, trying to placate the individual that wants to have this done. The real problem is, at one point, there was a motorcyclist who picked up his girlfriend at the high school and killed her in this corner. When it turned around through that parking lot, that is where the flagpole is. That's the way the street used to go. This was traffic's way of slowing down people for that corner by putting a stop there and making it very narrow and difficult to get through. You put a truck through there, you can't get around the damn corner. So you end up running it over, and then if you go too fast, you run through the intersection, you hit this flat-sided curb, you break your suspension, now we got a tow truck. It's all fun.
Just to clarify, there's a stop sign here they stop, then they make a right to go, so it's not like an open intersection. I think the people that are hitting that may not be doing the full stop, but I haven't been up there to traffic study.
Yeah, it's Vets Park down below, that's where you see the grass. This little wooded area is where the street used to go around and then come out down below where this island is. And there's a stop sign up here where you're supposed to stop. But yeah, I'm sure if you put a motor cop there, you'd be writing tickets all day.
Any other questions or comments? Skyline Forest 2, this is a request for the K-rail that comes over. It's over right off of Highway 68. This is the bridge that 17 Mile Drive's underneath. The request, you saw this last year, was to clean up the K-rail bridge abutment sides there and resurface it and get it kind of with the graffiti. Want to add anything to that to Dennis?
It's the entrance off of Highway 68 into our neighborhood, so we'd like it to look nicer. That's about all I need to say.
Sharon?
I see that you're talking about resurfacing. I mean, when there's graffiti, we usually have it pressure washed. Is there a reason that this needs to be?
There have been several patches where they've gone over the graffiti, and the patches are all quite apparent. So a uniform coat might be interesting. So the proponent has put this in has the problem of
Yeah, there's no water there. We wouldn't use water to, I mean, this estimate here is to pressure wash it, catch the water, because we can't let that drain off the site, clean up the spalted areas, and then put a graffiti-resistant surface on the K-rail. That's easy to do, but it's still cleanup. And against graffiti, the city's got a rule, we will cover it back up under 24 hours. Skyline Forest 3, this is the City of Monterey owns this piece of property. This is Highway 68, the new roundabout, Highway 1 going now. There's a AC bike path that goes all the ways down here. The city owns the property, but it's kind of in the county and a little bit of Caltrans right-of-way, the first probably 50, 100 feet there. And it's an AC pathway that goes down and ties into Viejo. Then the city maintains the roadway of Viejo from here down. This is the path. I don't think our crews have ever done any maintenance work on it, but the request was come in to reconstruct the asphalt path. And it's on city-owned. We own this parcel in fee. We got it from Caltrans, but it's probably actually in the except for a little bit of 30, 40 feet at the start, its own county, and a little bit of own here. But I have not met with my counterparts in the county or Caltrans about joint sharing on this.
Is there a less expensive way to approach this? I mean, I'm assuming that this is tearing it up and building it again.
So we could go into just patch and repair.
Yeah, could we look at that?
I'll talk to the applicant.
And as soon as you say Skyline Forest, my mind goes to a totally different part of the hill. Could this be Highway 1?
Yeah, I've heard
Bike path?
Yeah.
I mean, could it be Highway 1 bike path?
It got called Skyline because it's in the Skyline Forest neighborhood boundaries. Is why it got called that.
up and in the trees.
Yeah, I think that it's a misleading title to it.
We'll
And
work
if
on
you
it.
can see, if we can make it usable without rebuilding the whole thing, I'd love to see a smaller price.
Okay.
I didn't think that was Skyline Forest. I didn't even recognize it because I talked with this applicant's a neighbor of mine, and we talked about it, and I didn't think it was Skyline Forest.
It's in our neighborhood boundary.
Oh,
Otherwise,
okay.
we'd have made it citywide.
Oh, so you got the old Capitol site up there.
Yeah.
Hans.
Jeff, I read that, and recently, like last year, they replaced a lot of there's a kind of really nice wooden railing between there, next to the bike path going down. A lot of that railing was replaced, or a lot of different pieces in that railing were replaced. Was that done by Caltrans, or did Monterey City do that?
Monterey did not do that. But
A lot of those, I mean, they're big 8x8 beams were all replaced. So can whoever did that also partake in?
But we haven't hit the contact, so I'll talk to Caltrans. I know they just did a lot of tree work on that whole bank and everything.
Yeah,
But
so they may
typically
have done some of that. I don't know whether you can bring them in or not on
Okay,
that.
We'll check.
I'm surprised that's in Skyline Forest neighborhood. Because I've ridden that path before too, and frankly, it's kind of like the last one where we're talking about the rec trail and fixing up pieces of it. Most of that, in my recollection, was in good condition. There are just a few spots that needed to be repaired.
Okay. We'll take a look, rescope it.
But I haven't ridden in 7 years, so it's not that current.
Skyline Forest for the Greenbelt fuel reduction. It's a typical 8 segments, 8 areas in Skyline Forest for Greenbelt fuel reduction. Any questions or comments on this? I don't have the how much we spent. I'll get that by May 2nd.
Jeff?
Same as the Greenbelt fuel
Okay, so
removal.
those are the opposite numbers than what we have in our printout. Okay.
I flipped them?
Yeah, they flipped,
All right.
but they're both 50K. So.
Two the same project?
No.
We're quick enough to keep up with you.
Yeah.
So we'll find out, when we come back to May 2nd, we'll let you know how much we spent in these, for the trees and for the Greenbelt area. Skyline Ridge 1, this was a request at the end of Dry Creek to try to get an access road down to we have a maintenance road that goes down through here where the sewers are, through parcel B. And I noticed when we roughed it out to get a road down through here, it's just really a gravel road access, really for CAL FIRE and our jet truck, or to go down sewer. This would be about 20%. We haven't talked to the applicant because he left. The urban forester turned this in. He wanted in. We did notice there's kind of a path that goes up along through this area here. Unfortunately, Hans, if I do this area, we're getting close to you. Here I'm below your 500. But we looked at this. I can get a 15% pathway up here, which would come off of Herman and get to the same access road, provide access. It just wouldn't be as steep, and you can see where people have been walking up there. It might get more use. But there is a significant path going down here off of Dry Creek. People are walking down, getting to this access road, because then they go over to Quarry Park, and they go back over there, gets to Vets Park. And this is parcel B. Anybody have any comments on this?
I know that we don't have representative now for Skyline Ridge, but parcel B has been very close to their heart. Is there some way that we can at least communicate with the president of Skyline Ridge?
HOA?
And get some kind of feedback from them? Maybe they have a preferred option, or some take on it. I think it would be, they've always had an opinion. That's all. They've always had an opinion about this, about parcel B. I think we need to be asking them.
Okay.
Quick question.
Yes, Jamie.
So I grew up in the foothills, and there's lots of fire access roads, and none of them are paved.
No, this is gravel. This cost is just do the grading, the tree removal, and just the gravel. It won't be paved. It won't be a hard access, but it'll be gravel. But the one road I can get to under 15%, the other one's at 20%.
It says paved.
The existing sewer easement is paved.
Yeah, it gets down to the paved access sewer easement road down there.
So it's really construct an access road, not a paved access road.
Right, we'll clarify that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was access initially up through Dory Way to get to that. Is that now, which was over?
It's still there, but we have to get that homeowner to move his cars to get up in there. And a lot of times he parks in
Right.
the driveway. The access is a driveway.
My understanding was the initial agreement was that they do not park to block that access. They do, but they weren't supposed to, was the initial agreement when that whole property was developed. What did that?
I haven't followed up on that part of it yet.
Could that be a referral to either the police or the fire department and ask them to enforce?
Yeah. I can find out if we have an easement there, what easement we have. Villa del Monte 1, Montezuma is a cutoff project to do synthetic turf in the volleyball court. So what's been built just this last phase, we put the concrete walkway around, and we actually put the concrete band in the court. And I could just show you, because this will do 2 of them. BD1. This is VDM1, cutoff project from last year, Montecito Park, to put a synthetic turf volleyball court. I was able to use the allocation that didn't come out. This is the concrete band we placed for the, would go around the court. The 75K CDBG from last year and getting improvements, which was the exterior walkway. I put in all the conduit boxes for lighting, and I put in the perimeter rim of the future volleyball court. Medium. And we put in the cost for all the pavers down here with the court. That's why you see the cost is reduced from what it was last year for the synthetic turf. Dwayne, you want to add anything to that?
Nope. Just working its way through 3 to maybe phase 4.
Phase 4. We'll find out in May about this extra CDBG funds.
What about the condition of that turf in that busy park?
Well, then I'll get to, there's another VDM.
All right.
VDM 2 is Ramona Avenue. Yes.
I wanted to ask why it was that with VDM 1, which is the synthetic turf only, that the VDM 6, which is significantly more, is 80, 40, or whatever.
Because VDM 6 does all the turf. It does the turf and turf amendment, so it can actually, the grass can handle the water. Right now, it's like one of our sandiest parks, and that's why the turf's just gone with the watering levels we do won't retain. So VDM 6, and then VDM 6, I took out the cost of synthetic turf. We'll provide them a volleyball court, but it probably won't be synthetic. We'll do an adult, but I think the bids are going to come in kind of high.
I'm not sure that Parks and Rec understood that it wasn't going to be the whole Monte, that it wasn't going to be synthetic turf plus.
You mean VDM 1?
For VDM 6.
6?
That I.
We'll clarify that Wednesday then.
Yes, and, okay, well, I'll wait till we get to 6.
Okay. Ramona Avenue, they've asked for a radar sign on Ramona Avenue, that block between Montecito and North Fremont. We just had our second meeting last night, traffic calming, and as one of the revised upgraded traffic calming plan does recommend putting a radar speed sign on this section of Ramona.
Okay, has there been a determination on any bump outs on Bronner or whatever it is?
Well, this NIP just asked for Ramona work.
Right.
So we'll get to the other.
Okay.
And that's 1 or 2?
What's that?
$32,000. Is that 1 or 2?
I think this was 2 of them.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, we have one on either side. Our toughest part is where to put these and who will take them in their frontage. VDM 3, this is Ramona Avenue highway screening. This is the 300 block on the south side of Highway 1. As you can see, they got a big opening there. So the request is to put, we put the estimates, 8 large 36-inch box trees. We need to put in a temporary irrigation and probably a 2-year plan establishment to keep these watered is our recommendation. But it would fill in that area where there's no trees on this side of the Caltrans fence.
This has been before us many times.
So it went from 44 down to 28?
Yeah, I revised the estimate. I had it on both sides of the street, but the other side's the commercial area of Ramona. I was on the wrong, they're both 300 block. Then I reduced it down here to just this side here, but we did put some significant trees in to start with, which, we could put a small, hopefully, I could talk to Louis, talk to the applicant, maybe try to get smaller trees but faster growing. We can take a look. Dwayne, you want to add anything to that?
No, I met with the proponent also. Technically, they live on the other side of Ramona. But I was informed that the center line of Ramona and looked at the gap, so that's why we inherited this project. You know, it's just trees that have died and got knocked down, and they just like the sound barrier back up once it grows.
All right. VDM 4, you had seen this last year. This is to add lighting on that back side of Del Robos that butts up against the Highway 1. And so we're proposing to come from our power source over here at the park, at Ferrani Park, and provide lighting down here, is what we saw last year. I think we might have tried to look at trying to get a light over here on the pole, but I can't remember what it was.
So are we looking at 1 or 2 lights? Street lights?
I think I have 2 lights here in Robos, and I may have put one on the, I'll check, there's an existing pole to check on there. I'll check if it's 2 or 3.
I remember last year, when it was, we went out on the van tour, we looked, and one of the lights was on the freeway side. The only reason they wanted the light was to discourage somebody from parking their RV there. I don't think that that's the job of streetlights. If they need light at the end of the street, that's one thing, but I don't think we have to build a Cadillac here when a scooter would accomplish our task. If it is to provide safe lighting, we do not need to do 2 or 3 lights there. And we definitely don't have to do it on the freeway side. And that was where the significant part of the cost was getting the power over across the street. So I mean, I'd like us to really look at it and not be trying to discourage somebody from parking by using a light.
Okay, Tom?
I would support what Sharon's saying, because you're going to have that other diagonal parking, hopefully alongside the park, so there isn't going to be the great need to park in that area. Now, whether lighting encourages people to park there or discourages them, I mean, that's not our job to figure that out.
Well, I met with the person that lives on the corner house there, and I think it's more lighting to deter people here because it's a dark street and people just park here. It's not because of people, park users. It's more just to keep this dark area, to keep it lit.
The way it is.
But you don't need a light on both sides of the same block.
Yeah, there's no lights on this block right now, but we'll check it out. Any other questions or comments? We talked about VDM 5. VDM 6. So this was the improvement. We're going for CDBG funds. This puts in the bollard lighting that all the infrastructure's in now, the conduit, and so it just puts actual bollard lighting in along the pathway. It redoes the whole turf area in the back with the turf amendments, and it provides a volleyball court, but at this cost, I didn't include it for synthetic turf for the volleyball court. It would just give them a volleyball court, but the main thing is it does all the turf amendments so it can handle the decreased watering that we do in this park.
This is Parks and Rec's number 2 priority, but I do think we need to confirm whether they thought we were going to have the artificial turf with it.
Yeah, we could do that. We'll find out where we're going. Okay.
Okay.
This could be a joint funded project like we have now. Citywide 1, this is to provide security cameras to Ryan Ranch Storage Lot. This was a cutoff project last year. It didn't get done, but then Louis' crew did go and do the hardening around the fence at the storage yard. So this is to add the security lights. Any questions or comments?
Yes.
Richard?
What happens with the image from the cameras? They record it, does it go to a monitoring company? Because there's a giant difference.
No.
Because otherwise it's after the fact.
The cost for this is just a check for after the fact.
So the council has to approve the monthly charge for the monitoring.
Yes, sir. And it makes a difference how we buy the cameras.
Yeah. Well, I believe strongly in monitoring, because after the fact is kind of a waste of time. Guy with a hood on stole this.
And the council would have to change the policy for watch and active.
Scare them away.
Yeah, I do know that the people who were parking their vehicles there really appreciated the new fence. And I'm not certain that they were understanding what it is that's proposed.
Okay. Aguilita Road sidewalk, this is to add sidewalk to Aguilita Road from Mark Thomas all the way up to Allen Drive. Then after that, there's a AC pathway that goes on the other side of the ditch all the ways up Aguijito. And if I could just
no,
show
it was
you
the Navy
roughly.
school.
This was citywide too.
So that's, how much was that?
Allen Drive.
Yeah, what's coming down from, whoa, bike path.
So I'm looking here at the driveway and the lot there. This is
Yeah.
looking down at Mark Thomas. Just putting a sidewalk to this area.
Requesting to add a sidewalk along the bike lane, which would be right on the left side of the power poles, which is
just
Montino, come through this driveway crossing, and add some.
So that's Allen Drive there. After that, the walkway parallels up, or it goes up Allen Drive, ties into walkways, the whole Navy,
Yeah, Navy housing.
Navy housing.
There's a lot of foot traffic there between Navy housing and NPS too, so they could really use a sidewalk.
Yeah, so it's a significant stretch of roadway, and we actually have some areas where we probably have to put some curb in too. Citywide too.
Yeah,
So-
that's a good project.
So it's going to be concrete,
That's
curb and
our
curb and
estimate's
gutter.
concrete. What's that?
It's concrete, curb and gutter, and sidewalk, or,
It's only curb and gutter in a couple areas. The other area, I'm just putting the concrete off the backside of the existing AC dike.
Jeez.
I'll take a look at it, though. I
I-
better look at my estimate.
I'd like us to go there for the van tour.
Okay, and I'll
It
clarify.
looks like it's really needed there, but
Jamie.
that's a difficult location.
Oh, yeah. Jamie?
Yeah, safe access to schools or other grants. They got this community college and the Naval Postgraduate School.
Jeff,
Lee?
I could be.
Going back to CW2, that is so heavily trafficked, you would not believe, because you get a lot of those going to Naval Postgrad and they're walking, or there has been wives pushing the baby carriage, going along that to get to the Navy housing.
Sure.
I know we have a lot of walking coming down from the Hilton or from Glenwood, going over the Naval School, but along that road, particularly with the courthouse and all that traffic, and that also is a speed avenue.
Tom?
I believe at one time, they corner that where the Allen Drive, as a street, I never knew the name of it, was commercial property owned by the same guy that owned the Cypress Bowl property. And, it's kicked around and may have even gone, the guy died in
Tansy?
Japan.
Mr. Tansy?
I don't know what his name was. But
He's at the driveway where I took my picture right here. This is a lot that goes along through there.
Well, the thing is that still it's a commercial lot? It was at one
It's a
time.
commercial lot, I think.
So should
I'll check the
NIP
zoning.
be paying for?
But it's vacant.
It isn't a problem if it's vacant parcel.
Yeah. Good deal. All right. Citywide 3, requested to put multilingual signage for 7 strategic locations, outdoor mapping, letting people know popular destinations you are here. So I just showed a couple examples of the map or signs we have now just on the new, this is the monument, what's the monument? Oh, I lost the name of it. What's the monument? Mom's a big bird on top. Slope monument, oh, sorry, yeah. The slope monument, we just have some interpretive signs on there. We have signs down here off the rec trail area, letting people know where they are. And, this is just an example of what the signage could do and tell people where they're at in strategic locations. Any
I'm
other
looking-
questions?
I'm looking at this and it's saying downtown, harbor, and recreation trail. So how did we get in the lower Presidio?
No, I just showed examples of signage we have in our parks or trails or paths. This would be providing signage like this in the locations, where the 7 locations to be determined in those areas.
So you're saying we're just going to come up with the number 7? I mean, I'm
So
not
that, the
seeing-
request was 7. 7, I think the description asked for 7 strategic locations, but didn't define where they would be, where they would go.
In strategic locations, 1 or more outdoor maps. I'm not seeing the number 7.
Okay.
I know
So-
the applicant, I'll.
Well, could you find out, Kurt?
Yep, I will.
Good, but we'll
Okay.
clarify that.
Yeah, okay. That, I was just looking
I
to
thought
try
I
to
saw
find it.
7, but why 7? Okay. Kurt, get back to me. Good. Citywide 4, the Del Monte Beach dune fence and signage. So basically, along window in the bay, we've got some split rail fence that's been dismantled in some areas, and we have cables that's not there anymore. So the request is where it's visible right off the rec trail, I'll go through and redo the wood rail fence, but then string a new cable fence, and the idea is to put signage on there, re-emphasize, tell people to stay off the dunes and dune sensitivity. So we're trying to confine people to walk in the walking paths and not go through the dune restoration areas.
Can we change the name of this one to Window on the Bay? Del Monte Beach is on the other side of the Navy School, and so every time I read it, I think I'm looking at a different location.
Okay? Any other comments or questions on this one? So citywide 5 is changed to citywide dog park mutt mitts. We want to install mutt mitt stations in 25 parks. We did not go out and estimate all 25 parks, so we just kind of took an estimate that some of these will need some ADA compliant pads, depending on where we place the mutt mitts, but it was provide mutt mitts in 25 parks. Anything to add that, Louis?
I'm going to probably come in with matching funds on this too.
So I'll work with Louis on the estimate, and we'll get working on this.
And this would also be water fountains for dogs too, the drinking fountains. Isn't
Well,
that
that's
what they-
coming up. That's another
No,
request.
no, it isn't.
I thought that was this one.
No.
No, this is the mutt mitts.
No, actually, this, Parks and Rec made this their number 5 priority, and they wanted it to be called dog amenities.
Yeah.
And it was butt mitts and water bowls for dogs where there was existing water. That was the motion from Parks and Rec. So that, it was dog amenities.
Okay, I'll change the description.
I know you weren't planning on that, so we'll wait for new number.
There we go. Solicit all ball.
I'm assuming as the applicant, you're okay with that change?
Solicit a ball field ballpark parking. It's a request, we ought to replace the fixtures with new 42 pole mounted. The description came in for LED lighting. I talked with the lighting manufacturers. For us to change the LEDs, I'd need to change the poles out, about $650,000. My recommendation, I go back to the applicant, is to replace with new metal halide lights like I did at Jack's Ballpark. One, we can get parts for them, we can maintain them, and we can reutilize the existing same poles, and I could probably get that lighting done for $260,000. And the biggest thing is they could turn the system, they could turn it on and off with their phone, not have to go to the panel, the whole electrical panel for the park to turn the lights on and off. And so it'll upgrade the controls.
So will it also save on electricity?
It will save. The newer ones will save, but not like if
Not
we
like
had
LEDs.
LEDs.
Okay.
And the park lighting is very poor. Actually, when I did Jack's Ballpark, we saved what we could to save for parts to use over here, so we're just kind of limping them around, and the lighting is very dark for the sports events there.
I'm going to try to come up with 75,000 matching funds.
Okay.
So as you know, we're going through the 2-year CIP now. Any other comments?
This was Parks and Rec's 8th priority. It was a tie. So I know Jeff gave you the list up through 6. So there was a tie for 8th.
Citywide 7, Louis gonna freak on this cost, but we'll work on this. It's the Dennis Menace tray play equipment. The request is to put ADA compliant ADA train play equipment in this area at Dennis Menace Park. When you first walk in, there's a swing set there. This area there, we're gonna put it there, and this is a work in progress. I'll work with Louis on the cost. It's the first time he's seen it.
I'm sorry, I just have to say, we already have train play equipment there.
Good point.
Yeah. Had to add that. We're getting late tonight.
This was Parks and Rec's #1 priority.
All right, Citywide 8, this is the rec trail in North Fremont bike repair stations. So it's basically, we can, actually, I think I can get money from TAMSI on this too. They have a pot of money. We go for joint funding. Right now, I just have the total cost in to install a couple of these bike repair stations. They have all amenities to work on brakes, adjusting brakes, air for their tires.
This is mislabeled. I corrected it last time. Scott, his wife, are having a baby. He couldn't come. He meant the rec trail, and North Fremont can't seem to get off this title. It's not about the Fremont, it's about the rec trail.
Only rec trail?
Yeah. So.
Did he have a specific site in the rec trail?
No, he was thinking of anywhere from the window on the bay to Pacific Grove, wherever there's a place to pull off and people can fix their bike instead of carrying it home, which I've done. But it's mislabeled.
And I take it the tools are wired into the place, so, okay.
It's all in one pipe.
Yeah.
So you can't walk off with them.
Not unless you can cut them.
Sharon?
TAMSI actually has a program, and they have the stations. It would be like the bike racks were before, where we have to prepare the place it's going to be attached, but they'll provide the actual equipment. So in talking to them, you can find out what it takes to actually secure them wherever they would be. But apparently, I mean, Abby, who was here before, is on the bicycle committee.
Okay.
And she was saying they actually are providing them as long as we know how many we want. They'll give them to us, but we have to install them.
That's quite the deal. It will get the price down. This is the aquatic center we talked about. The Citywide 10, I had this for water bottle refill stations. To replace at least 2 current water fountains with the units that can also fill a reusable water bottle. And so this is a picture of the fountain there, a window in the bay. We also have a fountain just like this over there by the basketball courts out the rec trail. So I'd be installing new fountains, and you'd have the water fill up on top.
That's Scott's project too, and he saw somebody's large dog using the fountain, and then a couple minutes later, somebody came by to use it. So that's where he came up with the dog idea on the fountain. But he didn't want to install new fountains. He wanted to use existing fountains.
Well, these 2 existing fountains have the dog. These current ones now, they have the dog fill in the bottom.
You have anything from Fisherman's Wharf to PG on that
Yeah,
side?
this is right at the basketball courts.
Okay, that's, and, yeah.
There's one right at the end of the Coast Guard Pier too also.
Is there anything further on past the basketball court?
I don't think we have a drinking fountain.
Towards PG? No.
Yes. There's no drinking fountains at all on the rec trail.
Well, there's one by that new aquarium building on Prescott.
So would that be a possible location for this?
So the one at Prescott?
Yeah, there's one on Prescott.
Hoffman is the new aquarium building.
Hoffman, there's one on Hoffman.
Oh, that's Hoffman there. Yeah, so this is the one by the basketball court.
And that includes the bottle filling section of it.
Yeah, so we'll have to retrofit it out, but it'll keep the dog drinking with the bottle fill. Okay. So I'll go by Hoffman. But he still wants to retrofit the other 2 or just keep the one in the retro? Okay.
Can we do 1 or 2 more and then stop for the evening?
Sure. We're getting to the hour. Citywide 11, this is window tinting at the Kids Zone. Tint the south-facing windows in the Kids Zone at the Sports Center. Any questions or comments on that?
Parks and Rec rated that as 12, and it was 12 out of 12. I mean, they had 14 and there were 2 ties, so 12 was their lowest priority.
Okay. Citywide 12, I'm working on the estimate. This is to replace the water slide in the Sports Center. So I'm still working with this and working with the Sports Center. Any questions on this one?
What's wrong with the existing one?
It's pretty bad shape, and we've had it limped around now, but it's got some structural issues on it. Just it's been in that environment in the pool for over 22 years? Was it? Longer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like yesterday.
And a lot of use.
No, he ditched it.
Sharon?
Parks and Rec, 10th priority, and they actually are doing a survey into the community to find out, is this something that's a high priority for the community? So I don't think they're going to have an answer for us before we vote. I mean, these look exciting. They look like fun. They look like something people want to get onto. Mm-hmm.
Good deal. This is the library parking lot. So it's the Cypress parking lot right next to the library. The request is to add a street light to the wood poles right on the sidewalk area, right across from the fire station. So this is the Cypress parking lot, library, and the fire station one. The request is to add a street light up there.
You park in the back of the lot.
And I come back to.
Yeah, actually, I submitted this, and I talked to the library staff and to the director, and they all agree that the access, the parking lot is well lit, but as you come out of the parking lot, there's a walkway that at night, you can't see it. It is just totally dark through there. And I've seen people in wheelchairs and walkers not be able to use that. They always prefer to go up the driveway where the cars are. So that's.
Lighting it may help, but I doubt it.
Any other comments on this? Dennis?
I think it's the last one. Last time we cut off at 11 o'clock, we got home about 11:20 after closing comments.
There we go. Sure.
Okay, so also there's a goofed up entrance into that parking lot, and because there's not enough light, you can't see it, and you can hit the bump line. So.
Thank you.
It's definitely a safety.
So we have 1, 2, 3,
I had to
4,
chalk
5,
test. I had to carry my wife in and out.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
We finished number 77 through 109,
18,
so 35.
19.
Got about
So we have 19, 20, 22,
30, 33.
33 left?
Yeah.
So we need to schedule another meeting.
Do we do it next Thursday?
Well, we'll look for a room, see what we can get. And we'll have to let you know.
The Mayor's Water Authority is due to meet here next Thursday.
Yeah. We'll check the look, we'll see what rooms are, and we'll send out
How about Wednesday?
Parks and Rec on Wednesday.
Annual meeting Monday? Lunch on
Something's going on that night, after what it is. Over me and finance.
I would request that it be a Thursday if we can do it.
We shall take a look.
I spend a lot of money to drive around Fresno, and I got property in town over there.
Yeah, I did.
Everything is
Not this much. It was enough. Enough to keep my eyes open.
So with that, we will continue We'll go to committee member comments. Dwayne?
Thank you for an enjoyable evening.
It's been rough.
April?
Only one comment. My poor little neighborhood desperately wants this park. I look at all these parks proposals and improvements and getting, I mean, to me, that's like getting a Cadillac. All we want is our little park. Thank you.
You're waiting on me. You're being kind, April. Sharon?
I appreciate the patience, allowing us to really talk about these and begin to understand them. If we through going through this process, we're not going to do van tour on every one of them. And when we start having the public input, we really do need to understand what the project is. So I appreciate the patience. I appreciate the willingness to do an extra meeting to get her done. Thank you.
Dave?
Good night.
Dennis?
So last week it was where did the red curb go, and this week it is a path to go whistling past the graveyard. Next.
Good night.
No comment.
I do have a comment. I added up an hour tonight, and we were insisting the public has 3 minutes to comment, which is fine. But when somebody asked them a question, you notice that some of the public were communicating to us 10 or 15 minutes. Here's the problem. When you open public comments and you give one person 3 minutes, you give the other person 15 minutes. So we have to ask the question, but not let them continue their sales pitch on their project, because that doesn't abide with the Brown Act. So if you give them 15, you got to give everybody 15. That's the rule.
Yes, I'd like to thank the city attorney for our need. That was 2 that was 2 hours. We would not be having the extra meeting.
That's right.
Which brings up, when people and the staff ask you for presentation, we cannot do it on review nights. We have to have an agenda. We can call a special meeting if they need 2 hours of our time, but to do it on a review night throws the whole session of NIP off.
Okay.
Good night.
Tom?
Good evening. I just want to say I had the unfortunate thing of visiting Havana, Cuba on Monday this week, and they do not have a neighborhood improvement project program, because I can tell you, after 50 years of communist rule, it's a sad situation. A once beautiful city. It was just, you can blame it on whoever it is, but it was very disappointing to see the situation there.
Kathleen?
Good night.
Good night. Jamie?
No comment.
Anybody in the audience like to have an extra comment? All right. Thank you.
Concur.
Adjourn.